Chapter 26. This merchant visits the village from time to time. For the remote bit village, he's an important supplier of goods. I'd only ever seen him from a distance, but he always wore a pleasant smile and seemed like a good person. Even so, the unfamiliar seedlings must have shocked him. His reaction was pure panic. "Eli-san, hello. Aren't these Mandragoras cute? Mandragoras? You have to kill them before they scream. Ah, no, don't! Witch-sama worked so hard to make sure they're not dangerous." Eli dismounted his horse and reached for a weapon, but Ellie stepped in front of him with her arms spread wide. Behind her, the seedlings trembled as they clung to the child's thin legs. They were probably screaming their lungs out internally. But since they were forbidden to vocalize, all they could do was hide behind her. Yeah, they were definitely using a child as a shield, I could tell. I had told them not to hurt anyone, but I hadn't said anything about not using someone as a shield, so I suppose this was their method of self-defense. See, these kids can't do anything. It'd be mean to attack them. But these Mandragoras don't scream and can't hurt anyone. Witch-sama has taken away their ability to attack using her magic. They're just mobile Mandragoras. Still suspicious, Elia kept his guard up until Leonhardt stepped in front of him. As a holy knight, a profession that earns people's trust, his assurance seemed to give Eli pause. Even if they're harmless, they're still monsters. Eli looked down at the seedlings, still hiding behind Ellie. I mentally commanded them to return to me. They obeyed immediately, huffing and puffing as they scurried back and circled around me. Come on, time for another harmlessness appeal. Hold hands, spin in a circle like you're dancing. The Mandragoras joined hands and started spinning around me at my feet. The round ones were fine, but one had such a different body shape that it threw off the balance. Maybe I should make that one the center and have the others dance around it instead. I'll get them to practice later. A dancing Mandragora definitely leaves an impression. There are even sound-producing plants in the world, so I could possibly create a plant-based music troupe. Making them seem like cheerful, harmless plants might be the best way forward. Eli stood watching the Mandragora dance for a while. Though he still seemed suspicious, he fixed his eyes on me. "Are you really a witch? You're still doubting Witch-sama, even after seeing all this? Mandragoras are monsters. Only someone from the demon race could tame them like this." Noel bristled, his irritation toward Eli plain to see. Apparently, for humans, this kind of feat is only possible for demons. Well, I am a Mandragora, not a human, so it checks out. Well, I suppose you're right. If she isn't a demon, then only some top-tier monster from the depths of the demon forest could pull something like this off. As a level 99 monster from the deepest parts of the demon forest, I screamed internally. The seedlings must have sensed it. They stopped dancing and collapsed onto the ground. Outwardly, though, I kept smiling, and to others it probably looked like the Mandragoras just got tired and flopped over after dancing. Even the holy knight seemed pretty relaxed. So it's really not dangerous, huh? Uh-huh. I'm a totally harmless monster. I'd never hurt a human. To calm my swirling anxiety, I picked up one of the Mandragoras at my feet. This one had a green outfit, so it was seedling number 1. Watching me, Eli put a hand to his chin, deep in thought. "Witch-sama, would you be interested in doing business with me?" "Business? Truth is, I was the one who spread rumors about you in the village. The sudden change in the area scared me. You were this strange, unknowable being, but now that even the holy knights acknowledge you as a witch, you could become incredibly profitable." Eli's proposal went like this. If I were publicly recognized as a witch, any product I created could be sold under the Made by the Witch label and fetch high prices. I specialize in plant magic, so I can produce potions and rare herbs always in demand. Hey, that's pretty convenient of you. What if Witch-sama had been taken away because of your false rumors? But it was Noel who pushed back, obviously displeased. He too picked up a Mandragora at his side. This one wore a pink outfit. He hugged it tightly. Perhaps it was a substitute for hugging me? Well, it is a Mandragora, so it's practically the same as hugging me. Noel, don't be mad. Eli-san didn't know about Witch-sama because he's from outside the village. These little guys are super cute now, but I was shocked the first time I saw them too. But see, aren't they adorable? Adorable. Well, I guess they're amusing, at least. Ellie picked up the yellow Mandragora and held it up toward Eli. The seedling, still trying to act harmless, slightly bent its torso and tilted its head as if to say, "Huh? What's going on?" Eli leaned in and stared at the Mandragora up close. Feeling the intensity of his gaze, The seedling covered its eyes like it was embarrassed, but its hand placement just happened to block the visible part of its eye to prevent any mana drain. Witch-sama, I'm truly sorry for spreading those rumors, but that's why to replace them with stories of the real witch. I'd like to carry something that proves your authenticity, even just one Mandragora. But I understand if you'd rather not send one of your controlled monsters too far away. With that, he reached down and picked up the light blue Mandragora. It seemed his fear and caution had subsided enough to touch them. That left only the purple Mandragora on the ground. It struck a bold, sexy pose as if waiting to be picked up next, which likely ensured that no one would touch it. I decided to leave it be. So please, Witch-sama, I'd really like to work with you. I don't want to miss this opportunity, and I do want to make amends. If people know you as a proper witch, they won't suspect you anymore. This is a win-win situation, don't you think? Eli had a point. If I were known as a witch, fewer people might believe I was a monster. A surviving member of the demon race, the flower witch. If that's what people thought I was, I might actually be safer. So I nodded. Eli clapped his hands with joy and said, "That's what I was hoping for. Witch-sama, you're just too nice. You could have been mad about all this." It's not really something to get mad about. Honestly, I'm a Mandragora. And if suspicion led people to believe I'm a witch instead, then that's actually a good thing. I mean, I'm not a witch, but with that in mind, I patted Noel's head. My life among humans was going surprisingly well. It's been full of nerve-wracking moments, but somehow everyone keeps misunderstanding things in the best possible way. I really hope it keeps going like this. From now on, I'll need to be seen not just as the village witch, but as a good witch to those outside the village too. Meanwhile, the purple Mandragora is still holding that sexy pose. Why is this one like that? Chapter 27. Eli, who had brought up the idea of selling the witch's goods, began proposing various suggestions while searching for items that might have market potential. The village already had many rare plants, and it seemed he was struggling to decide what the first product should be. For instance, take these fairy candies. Just bottling them up and selling them as is would make a decent product. It's simple and visually appealing, but since they're technically fruits, not candy, the shelf life might be an issue. If that's the case, I make jam. If we turn them into jam, it'll keep longer. Now that's a good idea. We can start by distributing the jam, and once word spreads and people begin visiting the village, we could promote the bottled fruits as a local specialty. It seems Eli is already picturing a future where Bit Village becomes a tourist spot. Though this is a remote corner of the country, a backwater nestled beside a perilous demon forest, he envisions people coming here just to sightsee. Honestly, I don't think there are that many eccentric folks willing to visit such a dangerous place. Ellie had told me that even among peddlers, only Eli ever comes here. It doesn't seem like a lucrative location either. So I'd assumed he visited out of goodwill. Maybe his desire to help the village thrive also stems from kindness or goodwill. Noel boy, would you be willing to help with development? I'm doing this for Witch-sama, not for you. Don't get the wrong idea. I still haven't forgiven you. I fully understand. I intend to work myself to the bone to atone for my sins against Witch-sama. Though Noel resists Eli, he does seem willing to help with the business. Even while pouting, he gives advice and keeps the discussion moving forward. Eli, meanwhile, grins and rubs his hands together, letting the child's hostility slide right off him. That's a merchant for you. I don't quite believe the part where he says it's for my sake, but it's clear he genuinely wants the business to succeed. That means he has good reason to work hard to clear up the rumors about me. Those don't help his sales. What about medicine, then? Medicine made by witches or wizards is the stuff of legends. The court magicians sometimes make it, but only nobles can afford that. I heard you saved the village with your medicine. Would you be willing to sell it? The full recovery potion, it's easy to make, but would that even sell? It looks like ghost fire grass, after all. Ghost fire grass grows on graves, so using it for a product might seem ominous. Still, I produced a fruit containing the full recovery potion and handed it to Eli. He accepted it with a smile, but as he examined it, his expression gradually drained away, freezing into a blank stare. What is this? That's a potion made by Witch-sama. Right, I figured that. But more specifically, this looks like a full recovery potion. Did you seriously hand out dozens of these? I nodded. I thought it was the most effective thing I could give, so I had done just that. Eli now looked at me like he was staring at something unthinkable. Are you a monster or something? Don't be rude to Witch-sama. No, I didn't mean it in a bad way. You just blew past my expectations. If we circulate this on the market, it'll collapse everything. Better to not sell this. Maybe only offer it quietly to those who really need it, he asked, if I was a monster. And I nearly screamed, but apparently he didn't mean it in a negative way. He meant it in the sense of being beyond human in a good way, like superhuman. Still, maybe I shouldn't casually hand out full recovery potions like that. But if you can make this, then you can probably whip up more ordinary medicines too, right? Yeah, that's true. I just couldn't diagnose symptoms properly, so I figured it was better to make something that cured everything. Then that might be the better product to sell now, as for the rest. And so the negotiations with Eli continued. It seems he envisions turning this village where the witch lives into a full-blown tourist attraction someday. But is it really going to go that smoothly? Still, if this place does start seeing a lot of visitors, I have one concern. You don't suppose someone from the real demon race might show up? Nicolas lay sprawled on the sofa in his assigned laboratory, lazily reading over a report that had just been delivered since it concerned his assistant. He figured he might as well give it a glance. It was inconvenient not to have someone to boss around after all, and with some irritation he skimmed through the text thinking, just hurry up and expose that fake witch already and get back here. Huh? But then the contents of the report made him doubt his own eyes. It claimed the witch who had appeared in Bit Village was most likely genuine. She used advanced magic to freely control plants, growing them effortlessly. She had even succeeded in subjugating monsters, so long as they were plant-based, and was said to command a walking Mandragora. Are they all hallucinating or something? Furrowing his brow, Nicolaus sat up and reread the report from the top. It wasn't a misprint, nor had he misunderstood it. The text remained the same, no matter how many times he read it. Another demon besides me? After all this time? 500 years ago, the demons had gone extinct, leaving only Nicolaus behind. Since then, he had been raised among humans, given the name Nicolaus in place of his true soul name as a demon, and had grown up always wondering, are there others like me still out there? Only to be met again and again with the reality that no others remained. There's no way, I searched, didn't I? Definitely a fake. I'll expose them for what they really are. It was completely infuriating. As if venting that frustration, he crushed the report in his hand. Even Nicolaus had held on to hope for the first 100 years. He believed that somewhere in the vast world, fellow demons must still exist. Even in the second 100 years, that hope hadn't been extinguished. He chased down every rumor of demons he could find, but every last one who claimed the name was a fraud, a con artist, and each time his hope and expectations had been shattered. By the time 300 years had passed, he had finally given up. That's when he began researching monsters. One theory suggests that demons originated from monsters, that certain monsters evolved, gained intelligence equal to humans, and mated with them. From those unions, beings with exceptional power were born, the demons. That's one origin story. If they no longer exist, then I'll just make more. I've got all the time in the world anyway. Still, it's seriously pissing me off. If someone's claiming to be a demon, I won't rest until they regret it. That was the real reason Nicolaus became so devoted to monster research. If demons were truly gone, he would create new ones himself. But manipulating monster evolution was difficult, and he had yet to achieve any real results. He continued to avert his eyes from the possibility that the theory itself might be wrong. But even so, he hadn't given up. That was why he had also researched Mandragora. And now someone else had apparently caused a special evolution in one before he could. That, too, infuriated him. The Mandragora he'd painstakingly raised using dragon's blood had gone missing. And now, wait a second. This walking Mandragora, what if it's mine? The sham calling herself a witch might very well have stolen Nicolaus's research specimen. That thought made his blood boil. If that fraud hadn't taken the Mandragora, his research might have advanced even further. Yeah, I'm going to have to deal with this myself. With that, Nicolaus rose to his feet. As the royal court magician, living within the castle, he would first need to obtain permission from the king. I'll definitely strip off that fake's disguise. Chapter 28. As I listened to the sound of the pot bubbling and Noel's humming as he stirred it, I gently sipped from a cup containing tea with fairy jam. Yep, fairy candy jam really is nutritious, though I have no idea what it tastes like to humans. At Eli's suggestion, we decided to start by selling jam made from fairy candy. So now, in houses with time to spare, people are simmering fairy candies to make jam. The profits are distributed fairly and the village benefits, so it's a win-win. These fairy candies are really mysterious fruits. I wonder why one tree produces such differently colored fruits. Yeah, and they seem to taste different too. Total fantasy plant material. When making jam with this fruit, we first separate them by color. If we mix all the fruits together, the resulting jam becomes a muddy dark color, so we make red jam from red fruits, green from green ones, and so on. Personally, I thought the dark jam tasted best, but Noel made a face, so it must be an acquired taste for humans. Noel's really diligent with his experiments, but he won't make the dark jam anymore. The jam Noel makes starts with crushed fruit juice that's simmered down. Then he adds more whole pieces of the fruit and simmers again, resulting in a beautiful jewel-like jam that retains the fruit's shape. He won't make anything that looks unappealing. The white fruits turn transparent when boiled down, so Noel sometimes adds them to colored jams taken off the heat. This creates jam that looks like it's filled with colorful gemstones. Seeing this variety, Eli was overjoyed and showered Noel with praise. Perhaps the boy has a real talent for cooking. I made it for Witch Sama, but I never imagined it'd one day become a product for sale. Apparently, all that variety was something he originally developed for my sake. As a Mandragora, I can't really eat human food, mostly just drinks. Or more accurately, drinking things lets me fake the appearance of eating without arousing suspicion. Though to be honest, plant nutrients are way better for me. Like purification flower nectar. Sometimes I pretend to feed the seedlings and secretly sip some myself. Purification flower nectar is genuinely excellent nutrition. Right now, the 5 seedlings are scattered across the house and village entrances, housed in their personal pots. But it seems villagers have taken a liking to watching the seedlings rest inside them. Some even place empty pots filled with flower petals in front of their homes to attract them. There are 2 village entrances, so I've ordered 2 of the seedlings to always guard them. The other 3 move around freely between the house and village. They've even set up their own rotation schedule, and their free time behavior reflects their personalities. The purple one, for instance, often hangs around near the Holy Knight's Inn, probably because Ritter praises it. I was planning to use sound-producing plants to teach them to dance like with a music box, but I guess they've already done enough to seem harmless. In this world, lilies of the valley are different from those in my previous life. They actually emit sound. Each bell-shaped flower carries a specific musical note, so if you command them properly, they can play music like a handbell set. Each note lingers a bit, making them better suited for soft, gentle melodies rather than upbeat songs. I realized it might be better to use them not for dancing, but to create something like a soothing music box that could make a nice product too. Ile would definitely want to sell it. Still, teaching them a melody properly is the tricky part. You have to instruct the flowers to play in the correct order and interval. I'm trying to program them to perform automatically, but first I need to perform the song myself to teach it. In my previous life, I once performed in a handbell concert at a care facility, but I only handled 2 bells. I don't really know sheet music. Noel looks so happy listening when I do it, so maybe it doesn't sound terrible. He doesn't know the original anyway. He probably thinks I composed it. Lately, I've been trying to piece together a classic Christmas tune, 1 note at a time, testing and correcting myself along the way. But since I don't have perfect pitch, the result is turning out a little different. Maybe I'll keep working on it later, Toda? Huh? What? Just as I stood up to head toward the pot where the lilies of the valley were growing, a chill swept over me. Like an instinctive jolt, an overwhelming sense that a powerful being had entered my territory. That's what it felt like. Witch Sama, is something wrong? Apparently this sensation is unique to me. Noel, noticing I'd frozen mid-step, turned off the stove and rushed over. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I could sense something had appeared nearby, something that hadn't been there before. Probably outside the house. Ugh, none of the seedlings are nearby right now. Should have had one stationed out front. Whatever it is, it's definitely outside. I can tell because this whole area is surrounded by plants I created. For now, I want to see what's happening out there. So I mentally ordered the seedlings to return. Even from a distance, I could feel them responding and hurrying back. The closest one is the one guarding the village entrance. It would really help if the unknown presence just stayed put until the seedlings got here, but I doubt I'll be that lucky. As I turned toward the entrance, Noel also looked that way. Someone's here? I'll go check. Noel, wait. it might be dangerous. But I couldn't call out to stop him. All I could do was stretch a hand toward his retreating back as he dashed off. He didn't share my unease, so he simply opened the door and looked up at the figure standing there. "Who are you?" The person at the door wasn't a villager, a knight, or Eli. It was a stranger in a deeply hooded robe. The figure stared silently down at Noel, and although there was no visible hostility, Noel kept his eyes fixed on the stranger, puzzled. Huh. So the so-called witch keeps a beastkin around. As he spoke, the man pushed back his hood. Long, deep navy hair spilled out, and his eyes gleamed like amethyst. "You're the one pretending to be a witch? Or rather, what are you?" His glare landed squarely on me, a complete stranger, and very, very intimidating. Inside, I was screaming in terror. Chapter 29. "How dare you speak that way to Witch Sama?" Noel flared up, his fur bristling with anger at the stranger who had called me a fraud. That was the reaction I expected, but the man merely looked down at him with a bored expression. "I'm not here to talk to you. Be quiet, I command you. The puppy shall fall into a peaceful sleep. Huh?" The moment he uttered those words, Noel's body went limp and began to topple over. I hurriedly extended some vines growing along the wall to catch him before he could hit the floor. Was that real magic just now? It was my first time seeing anything like it. Casting without a chant, huh? Or is it something other than magic? Eep, how does he know that? The man strode straight into the house and stopped in front of me. He was tall and lean, and from where he stood, looking down at me, his presence was overwhelming. Being glared at from such close range, I couldn't stop the internal screaming. For now, I used plant magic to create a hammock and gently laid Noel down in it. "You don't seem fazed. A real magician shows up at your door and you're not shaken at all?" "Real? Wait, don't tell me this man is." "I'm Nikolaus, court mage and the last surviving member of the demon race. So what exactly are you?" Yup, this was it. A real Dominican had shown up at my house. I was still screaming internally. My face muscles were locked in a perpetual smile, because this body tends to grin harder the more distressed I get. What do I can't speak, and there's no good way to cover this up." I took a small step back, then bumped into the chair I'd been sitting in earlier and plopped into it. Nikolaus took that as a cue to sit as well, across the table from me in the chair Noel usually used. "You're angry I put the beastkin boy to sleep?" "I didn't hurt him." "Wait, do I look mad? My mouth should be smiling, though. Beastkin don't get injured from something that minor. You're overprotective, or are you just pretending to be a kind witch?" "Ugh, well, yeah, I am pretending to be a kind witch." This situation was bad. I couldn't speak, and my usual translator, Noel, had been knocked out. Meanwhile, a real demon was bombarding me with questions, and if I used my voice, I might end up killing him. I had no way to answer. "You can't talk? Or are you just choosing not to? Stop asking questions that hurt so much. This guy is terrifying. If you really are a demon, shouldn't you at least answer a fellow kin's questions? You can write, can't you?" Nikolaus pulled a sheet of paper from his coat and even placed a pen that resembled a fountain pen in front of me. The man was disturbingly well prepared. The problem was I could only write in Japanese. According to village chief Down, Japanese is treated as an ancient script here. But Down didn't seem very knowledgeable about it either. It might just be similar looking, but actually a different system altogether. Still, I had no way to dodge this. Trembling, I carefully wrote, "Can you read this?" "Ancient script, huh?" "Yeah, nobody uses this anymore. It's been long lost, even back when I was a kid. People rarely used it." If you really studied it just to fake being an ancient witch, that's some serious dedication. Even among demons, only a handful in the entire country can read it, myself included. To my surprise, he could read it. Nikolaus then took the pen and wrote something on the paper in return, but the script was a wildly deformed cursive-like version, nearly impossible to decipher. It was like the cursive of cursive, and I had no idea what it said. Thinking maybe it was upside down, I flipped the paper and stared hard, but nope, still unreadable. "Don't tell me you really can't read that?" He seemed a little taken aback when I tilted my head slightly. The only response I could manage, whatever he had written must have been something that should have triggered a clear reaction. So my blank expression surprised him. There's no way someone could really have been holed up in the mountains for 500 years, you know? "Yes, you're absolutely right. That makes no sense. That backstory was something Noel and Dayan came up with. Over time, everyone started treating it like established fact, but the truth is I'm just a Mandragora that grew up in the demon forest. I wasn't around for whatever war happened 500 years ago, and considering I was raised in dragon blood-soaked soil, I must have been born after that war. I don't even know how long I was in that forest. After being yanked out of the ground, I lived there for about a month, but before that I had likely been underground, soaking up nutrients for ages. How many years old am I, anyway? If you were alive, why didn't you come find me? Nicolaus's voice trembled as he muttered those words. The last living member of the demon race. Maybe, just maybe, he had been hoping, praying that someone like him was still out there. His anger at fakes might stem from a deep longing to find someone real. I'm so sorry, I'm just a Mandragora. What do I do? If I keep lying, he might be happy, but if he finds out the truth, I'm screwed, and the guilt's already killing me. My heart filled with regret. I quietly wrote I'm sorry on the paper. That one was completely sincere. From the bottom of my heart, I really was sorry that I turned out to be a Mandragora. I think I know why you're hiding. That moving Mandragora, it's mine, isn't it? You stole it. Huh. At that moment, a small figure came running in through the door. One of the seedlings I'd summoned earlier to check the situation outside, completely forgotten by me, had just returned. Chapter 30. Whoa, it really is running. What is this? How could it evolve like this? Nicolaus seized the Mandragora that ran into the room, grabbing it in one swift motion. He lifted it by the stem, firmly gripping that part to hoist it up. I had only ever seen people lift the seedlings gently by the body like cradling a child, so this new method made me want to scream. Naturally, the green-colored seedling being grabbed also trembled as if screaming internally. A Mandragora raised with purification flowers, not dragon blood? After observing the seedling closely, Nicolaus muttered with a puzzled look. And the moment I heard those words, a chill ran down my spine. That's information from the seedling's status description. Could it be? He can see other beings' status? This is bad, really bad. My status description is a total disaster. According to my own entry, I'm classified as a calamity. Despite being gentle and harmless in person, my abilities, depending on how they're used, could cause massive damage to humans. I'm effectively labeled not just a dangerous beast, but a dangerous weed. This Mandragora is one of your familiars, right? But your status... Don't look at it.
Please!
I was internally shrieking louder than I had since the day I was yanked out of the ground, but Nicolaus simply frowned in concentration before falling silent with a deep sigh. Maybe I can't live as a human anymore. Maybe I really do have to go back to that awful demon forest and live in hiding. But I don't want to kill someone to keep a secret. That would make me the enemy of all humankind. And I can't do that. All I've ever wanted is to live peacefully in the human world as a gentle little monster. Can't see it. That's annoying. Even if I'm tired, the gap in magic power is way too big. Wait, you can't see it. You've got more magic power than I do. That much is clear. You're definitely not human. And this Mandragora isn't mine. If it were, it would have said it was raised with dragon blood. Huh? Something he said just now caught me off guard. My status clearly states, raised in dragon blood, a premium Mandragora overflowing with mana. Curious, I quickly picked up the pen on the table and scribbled on a piece of paper. Nicolaus placed the seedling on the table and leaned in to read what I wrote. What do you mean by that? I like experimenting with monsters. 100 years ago or so, I planted Mandragora seeds in the land where a dragon had died. The place is overflowing with dense magic. I figured if I used that soil, I might get some interesting evolutions from plant-type monsters. So basically, he was the one who buried Mandragora seeds in the demon forest. Then everything I went through, all the terrifying things, the danger and chaos, was all his fault? What a thing to do. Because of that, I was yanked up by a goblin, forced into battles, and lived a life that was the definition of a monster's experience. If I'd been raised in a greenhouse or flower pot, I could have lived so much more peacefully. When I went to harvest them, one was missing. I figured you were the thief, but I guess not. If it had been mine, I would have taken it back and run a bunch of experiments on it. Sorry about that. But honestly, I'm so glad you didn't raise me directly. I would have ended up a lab plant for sure. The seedling trembled in fear, clinging to my hand and dripping liquid from its eye sockets. That wasn't a tear. It was a special Mandragora fluid that had a mild healing effect. It seeped through my sleeve and tasted rather pleasant, but it felt weird, like I was consuming a fellow Mandragora, or more accurately, a piece of myself. So Nikolaos-san is technically the one who created me. Does that make him my parent, though? Since I raised myself after I gained consciousness, he doesn't really feel like one. If anything, I feel more like blaming him for burying me in such a terrifying place in the first place. That aside, it seems he really does have the ability to view status info. My own skills let me see the status of myself and plants I've absorbed, but not other people. Nikolaos's ability must be something else entirely. But if I think too hard about wanting it, I'll probably end up spending my last 10 skill points, so I'd better drop the thought. It seems the ability to read someone else's status depends on the difference in magic power. Since my mana is immeasurable, not even Nikolaos, the most powerful mage in the country, can read mine. So if he can't see it, no one probably can. If anyone did see it, I'd be done for it. Clearly labels me as a calamity-level monster. My goal of someday changing that label to harmless monster remains unchanged. But for now, at least I don't have to panic. That alone is a relief. Just then, the light blue seedling returned. Nikolaos picked it up too. Another one. But this one's different again. Wait, how many of these do you have? 3 more are on their way. Maybe it's better to just show them all and convince him none of them are his. The remaining seedlings returned one after another. Each was promptly grabbed, inspected by Nikolaos, and declared, "This one's not it either," before being placed on the table. The last to arrive was the purple one, but when he picked that one up, unlike the others, he stared intently at it. "Hey, what is this?" "Well, Ritter-san saw it mid-evolution, so I had to finish what I started. Monsters usually choose their own evolutionary path, right? So it chose to become this? Why? Is this because it observed you? What kind of dumb, no-genius thought process is this?" This Mandragora is fascinating. Nikolaos looked extremely intrigued, clearly seeing it as an exciting research subject. As its former body, I was internally screaming in horror, expecting the worst. But instead, the purple seedling, despite being held by the stem, struck a bashful pose. It was practically saying, "Oh, you," in a flirty voice. "Yeah, this one really is weird. Where does it even learn this stuff?" Chapter 31. Nikolaos was still inspecting the purple seedling, tilting it this way and that as it struck a series of inexplicably bashful poses. Ones I had no idea where it had learned. While this odd display unfolded, someone suddenly came running to the front door. It was the one-eyed knight wearing an eye patch. "Leonhardt, which dono are you safe?" "Court Mage Dono? What brings you here?" "I'm here to investigate a fraud. Isn't that obvious?" Oh, right. He'd come to determine whether or not I was a fake witch. Remembering that, the fear came rushing back again. But Nikolaos finally set the purple seedling down on the table and stood up. With all 5 seedlings assembled, the table was quite crowded. They huddled together to avoid falling off the edge. They kind of looked like they were scared of Nikolaos too. For now, I can't say definitively that she's a fake. I also can't say for sure that she's real. I haven't accepted it yet. If I find out you're a fraud, I won't forgive you. I'll come back as many times as it takes to uncover your true identity. Eeg, I'm sorry, I'm just a Mandragora. Please don't ever find out. His amethyst eyes glared at me, and I shriveled under the weight of it. Compared to villagers or knights, Nikolaos was on another level. I absolutely, positively could not let this man find out what I really was. If he ever discovered the truth, I'd definitely be turned into some kind of botanical test subject. I couldn't let that happen. I probably was one of his original experiments after all. Thank goodness I managed to escape. It looked like Nikolaos was finally preparing to leave. He turned toward the front door. I didn't know what he might do, so I kept my eye on him until he was completely gone. "I must ask, Mage Dono, was it truly all right for you to leave the castle like this? The report was only just submitted. Would the king have granted permission so soon?" I got the king's permission. I cast a protective barrier around the entire castle and took a short leave. Leonhardt and Nikolaos had stopped a little ways from the house, conversing amid the garden's flower beds. I wished he would just go, but I couldn't very well tell him that, so I just watched the 2 of them from the entrance. Apparently, Nikolaos needs the king's authorization to leave the castle, which must mean he can't come here that often. Thank goodness. Please let it stay that way. Mage Dono, wouldn't that be an excessive drain on your mana? You used teleportation too, didn't you? Do you know who I am? I'm the only surviving demon. Of course I can handle that. As he said this, Nikolaos turned back around. That only still carried suspicion in it. He clearly hadn't let his doubts go. Naturally, I let out an internal EEP in response. Thankfully, nobody else could hear that. At most, the nearby seedlings would pick up on my feelings and tremble in sympathy. I'm going to draw a teleportation circle nearby. That way, it'll be easier for you all to travel too. There's a demon forest right here. You never know when that might come in handy. Fair enough, but Mage Dono, out of respect for Witch Dono's privacy, perhaps choose a spot that's not too close to her home? Especially not by the river, please. What, seriously? I was already planning to put it between the village and her house. So Nikolaus could use teleportation magic, basically a dream anywhere door out of a certain blue cat's pocket. I couldn't help being a bit jealous. But I really don't want that thing right next to my house. I'd better figure out exactly where he's placing it. If I grow some plants around the circle that can sense his presence, I might be able to detect his arrival early next time. Today it felt like he appeared out of nowhere, though maybe I can sense him when he's within range. Even now, I can still tell where Nikolaus-san is without even looking. I wonder how far away he'd have to get before I couldn't feel it anymore. The two men began walking in the direction of the village. I left the house and followed them. I instructed the seedlings to carry Noel to his bed and stand watch at home. At the midpoint between the village and my house, Nikolaus crouched by the roadside, placed both hands on the ground and began drawing. Light radiated outward from that point, forming the teleportation circle and etching a glowing design into the earth. All right then, I'm heading back. You guys keep a close watch on her and report everything. Mage Dono, please take care. Leave the rest to us, holy knights. As Nikolaus stood and turned back, his complexion looked noticeably pale. Leonhardt must have noticed too. He called out with concern from their earlier exchange. I'd gathered that Nikolaus had used a lot of magic. Being a monster, I'm different from humans. But when I use a lot of magic, it makes me feel a kind of hunger. Maybe it was the same for him. Could this be my chance to make a harmless impression? Among the many potions I can create, there's one that restores magical energy. It doesn't do much for me. Nectar from purification flowers works better, but based on the status description, it should work for demons. I quickly made one, just to be safe, and then made a second, sealing the magic-restoring liquid into fruits that don't look like ghostfire grass. Nikolaus looked down at me. You don't need anything from me. Wait, what is this? I'm a very good person, so I'm giving you this gift. And if you could stop doubting me, that'd be fantastic. Since the medicine glowed blue, it shouldn't be mistaken for anything ominous. I offered the fruit to him. Nikolaus gave me a suspicious look, but took it, and stared at it intensely. A mana restoration potion? You're an idiot, aren't you? What was it the wrong thing to give him? I'll be back, just as you clearly wanted. I absolutely did not want that. Yet with those parting words, Nikolaus drank the potion from one of the fruits, stepped into the teleportation circle, and a brilliant light burst forth, blinding me momentarily. By the time it faded, he was gone. Well, at least he left without uncovering my identity. But something tells me I might have made things worse. Inside, I howled with despair. Witch Dono. It must be wonderful to have been reunited with a fellow kin. No, absolutely not. Not wonderful at all. Oh, that reminds me. Should I inform Mage Dono of your affliction? Not following, I turned to look at Leonhardt. He pointed to his neck. He still thinks my voice has a curse that causes people to hate me. So he was asking whether to share that with Nikolaus. No, definitely don't tell him. It's just a Mandragora species trait. If he finds out, he'll want to investigate even more. Then we shall keep it our secret for now. Allow me to escort you home, Witch Dono. When I shook my head, Leonhardt smiled brightly. I, on the other hand, felt completely drained. At this point, I just wanted to curl up in the soil and sleep forever. Maybe if I built an oversized flower pot and filled it with purification blossoms, I could get away with sleeping in that. Chapter 31.5, Nikolaus, Part 1. When Nikolaus informed the king that he would be heading out to investigate the witch, he was told to wait a few days due to changes needed in the guard placements and castle defenses. He resolved the issue instead by brute forcing a wide-area defensive barrier over the entire castle. The king reluctantly gave his permission, and Nikolaus departed at once. This isn't anticipation, it's irritation. I just want to wring the culprit's neck as soon as possible. Using a teleportation magic circle, he first traveled to the city where the lord overseeing Bit Village resided. From there, he literally flew to Bit Village using flight magic. When he saw the area surrounding Bit Village from above, the scene was vastly different from that of other human settlements. The entire village was encircled by brambles, and vivid greenery and multicolored flowers spread throughout its interior. The lush palette was beautiful, yet terrifying at the same time. It's being swallowed by plants. Looks like how plant-type monsters mark their territory. Well, it's not the same since there are so many different kinds, but still. When plant-type monsters evolve to a certain level, they start establishing territory by spreading roots and leaves across an area, forming a domain. Bit Village resembled such a state, but the variety of plant species made it something else entirely. According to the report, there's a watermill cottage a bit away from the village that must be it. A lone building stood by the riverside, some distance from the village. The water wheel turned slowly beside a cottage surrounded by flowers. It looked more like a botanical garden. That must be where the audacious woman calling herself a witch was. Nikolaus landed in the floral garden, only to immediately freeze, sensing the overwhelming presence of something. What is this magic power? Someone with an enormous amount of magic power was inside that building. He had never felt anything like it before, not from any of the imposters he'd investigated, nor from any other race. If I look at her and use appraisal, I'll know calm down. He took a deep breath and slowly approached the house. He'd seen abandoned homes covered in ivy before, but this was different. The building itself wasn't dilapidated, instead, vibrant flowers and greenery had blossomed all over it. Not a single plant looked withered or dead. It gave the impression of a living plant house. Only the door was free of growth, ensuring clear access. Before Nikolaus could touch it, the door opened on its own. A beastkin child appeared, followed by a woman watching from behind. Just looking at her, he could tell her magic was overwhelming. There was no way she was an ordinary human. He immediately activated the skill appraisal to uncover her identity, but the results were completely unexpected. What is this race, clan, power, magic power skull? When he used appraisal on the child, it worked just fine. Race, human, beastkin. Age, 8. Stamina, B. Magic power, E. Skill. Beastification title, attendant to the flower witch. Notes. A beastkin who swore loyalty to the mistress who saved his life, believes in her with almost fanatical devotion, will not hesitate to sacrifice his life for her. Apparently this beastkin child was in service to the woman known as the witch. Having a beastkin serve her, how very demon-like, and her magic power exceeded even Nikolaus, who was from a race famed for its magical prowess. But that alone wasn't enough. It wasn't yet conclusive proof she was a demon. With a status too warped to determine whether she was human or not, he couldn't be sure. I'll uncover her identity. But I won't get my hopes up. Just having overwhelming magic power could still point to a mutant from another race. He had come to verify whether she was the real deal. There wasn't enough information yet. He needed more. So Nikolaus opened his mouth. Huh? You've got a beastkin servant just like a witch would. So you're the impudent one calling yourself a witch? Or rather, what are you exactly? He watched her reaction closely as he used his words to provoke her. But even as he subtly cast doubt on her identity, the woman only smiled gently and looked back at him. It was the kind of serene composure one might see in someone who had lived for a very long time. You dare speak rudely to Witch Sama. It was the beastkin child who reacted to Nikolaus's words. As devoted as the status suggested, he wasn't about to let anyone speak disrespectfully of her. It seemed impossible to have a proper conversation with the woman as long as the child was around. Nikolaus cast a sleep spell on the child, and the moment he collapsed, the plants crawling along the walls shifted to catch his falling body. I've never seen magic like this. There were texts saying that when demons master a single kind of magic, they no longer need incantations and gain far greater control, but still, Nikolaus wasn't sure. He had never met another demon besides himself. In his case, he had pursued versatility, learning many kinds of magic instead of specializing in one. There wasn't enough data to compare. Not yet. It's too early to say she's a demon. I need to observe her more closely. He stepped forward and looked down at her. Her features were sculpted like a doll, and she wore a perpetual, serene smile. She looked at him with the kind of affectionate expression one might show a child. For a demon who had supposedly lived 500 years to show that kind of face, was she treating him like a child? You're awfully calm, not even flustered when a real magic user shows up at your door, huh? She didn't answer, just kept smiling. Then she made a gentle motion with her fingers, and the vine supporting the child shifted into a bed. Ignoring the child, Nikolaus pressed her again for an answer, but she said nothing. Instead, with a soft rustle, she sat down in a chair. From this angle, her flower-crafted hat obscured her face entirely. Is she mad about how I treated the beastkin? To make sure, he sat down across from her, adjusting his position to see her expression. She was already smiling again. Maybe she hadn't been all that angry after all. He was briefly unsettled by his own moment of panic. No, I'm here to uncover this woman's true identity. Why won't she say anything? Even as he asked more questions, the woman remained silent, smiling. A strange sense of unease began to creep in until he remembered there had been a report saying she couldn't speak, but she should be able to write. He took out a pen and some paper and laid it on the table. She finally picked up the pen. Can you read this? She had written it in ancient script, characters that now only appeared in old grimoires left behind by the extinct demons. Nikolaus had studied those tomes and learned every spell from them. He was very familiar with the writing. No modern human used this script anymore. All demons used to write like this, still not definitive. Just being able to use ancient script doesn't prove she lived in that era. This script was the root of the current writing system. With enough study, someone could still learn it. Just being able to write it wasn't enough proof that she had lived in those times, so Nikolaus tried again, this time writing in modern characters. He made sure to write upside down so she could read it from her side of the table. You've been designated a monster. The kingdom has issued an extermination order. Run. There was no way someone wouldn't react to such an extreme message. Nikolaus watched closely to see how she would respond. Chapter 31.6 Nikolaus, Part 2 When Nikolaus set down the pen, the woman pulled the paper toward herself and, despite the fact that the writing was already oriented for her, she deliberately turned it upside down. Huh? Don't tell me she really can't read this. The person in front of him didn't even understand which side was up. That action alone was enough to cast doubt. No one would do such a thing if they understood the script. She had written the ancient language fluently, and yet didn't even know the orientation of modern text. That could only mean one thing: she hadn't lived within human culture since the modern writing system came into use. But being able to write ancient script meant she had definitely lived in that era. Could it really be that she had been holed up in the dragon's wasteland for 500 years? There's no way you've really been hiding in the mountains for 500 years. His voice came out as if scolding. If she truly were a demon who had lived since the time of the war against the dragons, then she should have known about Nikolaus. It didn't make sense that she had never come to see him. I kept searching for you. I became a court magician just so it would be easier to find me. You still never came. He had reached the limits of searching on his own. That's why he'd become a royal court magician, to make himself visible so that if there were any other survivors, they would know where to find him. He'd thought surely someone would come, but no one ever had. And so, day by day, he was forced to accept the bitter reality that the demons were truly extinct. If you were alive, why didn't you come find me? He couldn't understand why. If they were each the other's only kin, wouldn't she have wanted to meet him? At the very least, if she was a true fellow demon, Nikolaus had wanted to meet her. She might not have known where he was while she was hidden away for 5 centuries. But even so, once she emerged into the world, shouldn't she have tried to find him? I'm sorry. Her short apology. She offered no explanation, leaving Nikolaus to imagine the reason why she had never come. Was she a fake all along? Or is there another reason? He suddenly remembered. This witch was said to command walking mandrakes. Nikolaus had a theory. He had once planted a number of mandrake seeds in the dragon's wasteland, soil enriched by dragon blood and flesh. But even for him, the miasma near the center was too strong to approach, and though the corruption had thinned over the past 400 years, it was still a place he avoided. If I had stayed in that place, I probably wouldn't be human anymore. He had sensed something within himself beginning to change, so he fled as soon as the seeds were planted. He left the retrieval to someone else. At least one of them had apparently sprouted. There had been traces, but it had never been found. And now this woman was managing an unusual mandrake. If it had grown in dragon-tainted soil, then rare evolutionary traits would be no surprise.
I think I know one reason you were hiding. That moving mandrake, it's mine, isn't it? You stole it, didn't you? He couldn't think of another explanation. Maybe she had taken someone else's research subject and was too ashamed to face him. She'd lived near the magic zone, found one of the rare mandrakes, and made off with it. That would have made sense. But just then, a mandrake happened to appear, and when he used appraisal, that theory was crushed. All 5 walking mandrakes were not born of dragon-tainted soil. They had been raised by the pure bloom. None of them are mine.
These were wild mandrakes that she turned into familiars and completely tamed. That's actually fascinating in its own right. One of them in particular had developed with a very distinct personality and appearance. Its evolution made it an excellent research subject, but she hadn't stolen anyone's research. Instead, she had developed this result on her own. Nikolaus felt a pull, a desire to understand how this evolution had occurred. Wait, something's off. My drive to research has cooled. No, that wasn't quite right. It hadn't cooled. It had changed. He'd once been driven by desperation, like he was cornered. But now, he simply felt a pure desire to study monsters. The original motive, to evolve monsters into new kin, to create fellow demons, that desire had faded. Don't tell me I actually believe this woman is a demon? That can't be it. Don't get your hopes up, he told himself. If he hoped and got betrayed, what would he do then? He might lose control. He might rip her apart in fury. Even though her magic power vastly surpassed his own, he might not be able to hold back. If she's real, I don't stand a chance. A demon who survived the Dragon War, there's no way I can beat that. Does someone like that really still exist? So he wouldn't hope. Even if the woman looking at him smiled with the warmth one would show to a fellow demon, he wouldn't let himself hope. Where did my mandrake go anyway? If I ever find it, I want to compare it to hers, see how they differ, study the qualities, ask her about her method for making familiars. His mandrake had grown in dragon blood. Compared to hers, which had been raised on pure bloom, it should have undergone an even more unique evolution. It wouldn't die so easily. It was probably still alive somewhere, but tracking it down wouldn't be easy. The magic zone was still changing. Sooner or later, a particularly dangerous creature would emerge and take over. Once that happened, it would expand its territory beyond the zone and begin threatening the humans nearby. Finding one small mandrake in that kind of area would be difficult even for Nikolaus. Her mandrakes were in the magic zone too, right? Maybe mine will also come down the mountain like they did. If she finds it, she'll probably return it. If I explain... The mandrake, shaped like a woman, draped in a purple cloth, squirmed in front of Nikolaus as he stared. He couldn't help but be intrigued by how such individuality had formed. He'd have to come observe again. He still hadn't uncovered the truth about the woman. He'd need to visit frequently. Just as he was thinking that, a knight arrived at the woman's house in a hurry. Witch Sama, thank goodness you're safe. Wait, why is the royal magician here? First, the knight confirmed the woman's safety, and then turned pale with surprise at Nikolaus's presence. From the expression and words, Nikolaus could tell this knight was on her side. That would make proper investigation difficult. Chapter 31.7 Nikolaus, Part 3. The official report had noted that the witch had tamed a single moving mandrake that had escaped from the magic zone, but it never mentioned there were 5. There were clear signs that someone had intentionally withheld information. Whether it was this man alone, or the entire unit of holy knights during their investigation, was unclear, but at the very least it was certain that one of the commanding officers had been compromised. I came to investigate a possible fake, obviously. Given that, Nikolaus was the only one truly capable of determining whether or not this woman was really a demon, which is why he muttered, almost as if trying to convince himself. He couldn't trust anyone else's investigation. He had to do it himself. At this point, I can't say for certain that she's a fake. But I can't say she's real either. I still don't believe it, and if I find out you're an imposter, I won't forgive you. Until I know for sure, I'll keep coming back. She didn't even seem slightly annoyed. She just smiled as if genuinely happy, as if to say, you're welcome any time. Was that confidence in her ability to conceal the truth? Or was she simply pleased that a fellow demon had come? Either possibility fit. Nikolaus still couldn't decide whether she was fake or real. But Mage Dono, was it really okay for you to leave the castle? It hasn't been very long since the report was submitted. Isn't it too soon for royal approval? I got permission from the king. I threw up a wide area defensive barrier around the whole castle and took a little time off. Mage Dono, that's quite the reckless use of magic. And you used teleportation magic too, didn't you? The words were polite, but clearly meant to rebuke him. And he was right. Nikolaus had used far too much magic today. He'd rushed here, driven by urgency to uncover the witch's identity. If she was a fake, he couldn't tolerate it, but maybe, just maybe, he'd also hoped, just a little, that she was the real thing. Who do you think I am? I'm the last surviving demon. Of course I can handle this much. The last surviving demon, but maybe not the last. When he turned to leave, his eyes met the woman's. She seemed to be watching him, perhaps to see him off. The gentle, enveloping smile she gave him made him quickly turn away. I'll carve a teleportation circle nearby. You'll find it convenient too, especially since you live next to the magic zone. You'll need it someday. The magic zone was still changing. Eventually it might spawn a magical disaster. Either way, the village needed a teleportation circle, but maintaining one consumed a good deal of magic. Nikolaus alone had his limits, but if that woman was willing to cooperate, her vast magic power would allow for far more use. Of course, that assumed she would be willing. That may be true, but Witch Sama also values her privacy. Wouldn't it be better to place it a little farther away and please avoid the riverbank? This one-eyed knight really was suspicious. He seemed close to the woman, and his words made it sound like he wanted to keep her hidden from surveillance. Something's at the river, huh? Still, I'll place it where I planned. Has to be a convenient location. Nikolaus set the teleportation circle between the house and the village. It would make future visits easier. But anchoring the magic circle consumed even more magic, and he started to feel lightheaded. Yeah, he definitely overexerted himself today. Well, then I'll be heading back. Keep an eye on her, and make sure you report everything properly. Mage Dono, please don't push yourself too hard. Leave things here to us, holy knights, he warned the one-eyed knight, though it probably wouldn't matter. That man usually wore a cheerful smile and was well liked by all. Unlike Nikolaus, who kept to himself, this knight was someone everyone relied on. But now he had an entirely different look in his eye, sharp and intimidating, like he was trying to scare Nikolaus off. So he's been putting on an act this whole time. Maybe he figured it didn't matter if someone like Nikolaus saw his true face. Or maybe he cared about the woman so much, he was willing to risk it. Either way, this night was working for her. Nikolaus would definitely need to keep coming back. I'm fine. Who do you think He'd been planning to puff himself up again, despite feeling drained from depleted magic. He wanted to make it clear. I'll keep coming no matter how much you try to hide. But the woman who had been watching quietly from a distance now approached with a gentle smile, interrupting him mid-sentence. What? You don't have any reason to bother with me. She had every right to want him gone. After all, he was here investigating her as a possible fraud, and yet she quietly held something out to him. It looked like the fruit of a will-o'-the-wisp plant, though the color was different. Something was inside. When he picked it up and used appraisal, he found it was a magic recovery potion. Item name: Magic Recovery Potion. Description: a potion specialized for restoring magic power. A beloved product among demons with vast magic reserves. Top-tier quality with absolutely no impurities. This was a potion commonly crafted by demons. The method had been recorded in texts left behind, so Nikolaus himself could make it, though he'd never managed one of this quality. Apparently this woman was very experienced in brewing them. Among demons, creating this potion marked the threshold of adulthood. Until then, it was customary for elders to make the potions and help young demons train in magic. But Nikolaus had always been alone. Of course, no one had ever given him one. A magic recovery potion. Is she treating me like a kid? And she gave me two. One was more than enough to fully recover. Giving a second one clearly meant, use it next time you come. It was like handing travel snacks to a child visiting home. Not something you do for a 500-year-old demon. Just how many years had this woman lived to act like he was a child? You really are an idiot. She only smiled softly. Even though Nikolaus was accusing her of being a fraud, her actions showed she wanted him to come back again. She had ignored him for so long, and now she was suddenly showing kindness. He didn't know how to react. Was she feeling guilty for leaving me alone? Idiot. Maybe she had secluded herself in the mountains for 500 years for a reason, and now that she was back among people, she found it hard to face him. But now that he'd come to her on his own, now that they both knew of each other's existence, maybe she was thinking, you can come back any time now. If that was the case, she could have just come to see him. It wasn't too late. I'll come again, like you want. He downed the potion inside the fruit. A refreshing flavor spread through him, and the magic power rushed back into his body. He felt light, almost euphoric. Command, teleport, first circle. As the glow of teleportation wrapped around him, he looked back one last time. The woman was still watching him, still smiling gently. Maybe she really was a witch. He wanted to believe, but he still didn't know for sure. That's why he'd keep coming back. Next time, he'd bring his own magic recovery potion and show her, so she'd stop treating him like a child. When he arrived back in the teleportation chamber of the royal castle, the guards standing watch looked utterly stunned. Mage Dono? Why do you look so cheerful? Huh? What are you talking about? No, it's rare to see you smiling, so I didn't mean anything by it. Nikolaus touched his mouth. Sure enough, the corners were turned up. Realizing that he couldn't help but let out a wry laugh. Looking up at the ceiling, he sighed deeply. In the end, he had been hoping all along. And though there was no proof yet, the fact that he hadn't been disappointed, that alone gave him relief. What a fool I am.
My deepest apologies. I wasn't talking to you.
Leaving the guard behind, Nikolaus returned to his lab with a light step. He still had Mandragoras to tend to today. If he took proper care of them, they'd grow into excellent ingredients for magic recovery potions. By the time he visited her again, he'd be ready. Chapter 31. Side Story, Leonhardt. The Holy Knight Order stationed in Bit Village had borrowed a vacant house to use as their base. It was a bit cramped for 10 people living together, but it was far better than sleeping in tents out in the wilderness. Thanks to the witch's kindness, they had lamp plants to light their rooms at night, and hygienic toilets maintained with pure blooms. The living conditions were surprisingly comfortable. The knights were no strangers to venturing into uncharted lands or braving the harshness of nature in order to subdue monsters, but this particular mission allowed them to relax in relative peace, free from such hardships. The witch investigation had concluded with the report. The Flower Witch of Bit Village is a true demon. Their continued presence in the village was now primarily for monitoring the nearby magic zone. If the witch was indeed genuine, then they should form a cooperative alliance with her in preparation for the disasters to come. That was the official stance of the Holy Knights. I didn't know witches could do so much. The court magician is impressive too, but when it comes to plants, I think Witch Sama has the upper hand. Even those moving mandragoras, I think I'm starting to get used to them. Don't drop your guard. They're still monsters. Well, yeah, but just look at Commander Ritter. From the conversation between his subordinates, Leonhardt glanced over at a certain fellow knight. There was Ritter, one of the witch's most enthusiastic supporters, fawning all over one of her Mandragora familiars, an expression on his face that definitely wasn't suitable for showing to the general public. Purple-chan, you're looking sexy today, too. But no, just flaunting it isn't enough. You've got to have some shyness, too. Like this, cover your chest with your arms and twist your body a little. The purple Mandragora was different from the others. It had a body with feminine curves, and Ritter seemed to have taken quite a liking to it. He was so hopeless with women that it looked like he was ready to settle for a Mandragora. Today, he'd gone full-blown weirdo, striking weird poses in front of the purple one. Leonhardt honestly didn't know how to react. He really wished Ritter would stop being creepy around the witch's familiars. Commander, this goes beyond creepy, it's straight up scary. This right here is why women avoid you. Ugh, sorry. Rebuked by one of his subordinates, Ritter finally stopped his strange behavior, looking visibly dejected. Then, without warning, he picked up the Mandragora and hugged it tightly. What the hell was he doing? Huh? You're kinda stiff. Well, it is a Mandragora. What exactly were you expecting? No, it's nothing, really. Even while trying to brush it off, Ritter continued to clutch the Mandragora, but it suddenly began to squirm in his arms, clearly trying to escape. Ritter's expression turned to one of utter despair as he desperately tried to hold on. Ah, Purple-chan, don't run away. If even you hate me, I'll never have a chance with women. If you're saying stuff like that to a Mandragora, then yeah, you're never getting anywhere. Watching Ritter cling to the fleeing Mandragora while his subordinate looked on in complete exasperation, Leonhardt noticed something odd. Something was wrong. The purple Mandragora wasn't just trying to get away from Ritter, it was clearly reaching its limbs toward the door, desperate to get outside. Maybe this wasn't just about escaping his creepy embrace. Ritter, something's not right. Did something happen to Witch Sama? Huh? Is that what it is, Purple-chan? The Mandragora nodded firmly, confirming their suspicion. Anxiety grew in Leonhardt's chest. The moment Ritter let go, the purple Mandragora darted out of the room. Leonhardt quickly ran after it, shouting as he went. I'll go check on her. The rest of you stay here and be ready. Got it. If anything happens, call for backup. Leonhardt chased the purple Mandragora through the village. It was incredibly fast. He couldn't keep up, but its destination was clear, the witch's house near the watermill. She had never moved so urgently before. Something had to be wrong. What happened to Witch Sama? Did a monster attack the house? Or maybe someone heard her voice and came after her, to Leonhardt. The Flower Witch was the only person who truly understood him. The idea that something might have happened to her filled him with dread. He arrived at the house, panting and out of breath, and called out as he pushed open the door. "Witch-sama, are you? Wait, why is the court magician here?" Inside was someone he had not expected to see. Nikolaus, the eccentric royal magician who cared only about monsters. The man previously thought to be the last surviving demon in the world. He was entrusted with a portion of the royal castle's defenses. He wasn't someone who could easily leave the capital. So why was he here, in this remote village? "I came to investigate a possible fake." Obviously, until the Flower Witch appeared, Nikolaus had been the only known demon. It made sense that he'd want to determine the truth for himself. He's her only surviving kin, then. Leonhardt felt a pang of envy and was surprised by his own reaction. The Flower Witch had always been the only one who shared his curse. They were the only two people unaffected by each other's presence, that had made their bond special, irreplaceable. But the same could now be said for her and Nikolaus. Those who share the pain of the same curse, and those who share the same bloodline, which bond is deeper? Surely the latter. Though the witch would never treat Leonhardt poorly, she likely saw Nikolaus as someone truly precious. It made him feel just a little jealous. "At this point, I can't say for certain that she's a fake, but I can't say she's real either. I still don't believe it. And if I find out she's a fraud, I won't forgive her until I know for sure I'll keep coming back. Witch-sama is so kind, and yet how can he be so cruel? Even with 500 years between them, there's no need to speak that way." Nikolaus's words were harsh. Leonhardt couldn't help the hostility that crept into his own tone. He didn't want this man anywhere near her. This 500-year-old demon was acting like a bratty teenager. Maybe that was why Witch-sama kept her distance, quietly watching him rather than approaching. She must be hurting. She had her reasons for staying away all these years. She won't make excuses, but if not for her cursed voice, she would have taken in baby Nikolaus herself. She couldn't, and 500 years passed. It was only natural she felt too guilty to face him now. She'd take any blame he threw at her with a smile. If he's only going to come here to shout at her, he shouldn't come at all. It'll only make her sad. Leonhardt tried to subtly express that message, but in the end, the witch handed Nikolaus a magic recovery potion. 2, in fact. 1 for now and 1 for the next time he came. So, I was being selfish, trying to push away someone so important to her. To Witch-sama, maybe the court magician still seems like a child. Maybe she finds even his tantrums endearing. She must have been overjoyed to reunite with her kin. And if that was the case, Leonhardt realized he should be happy for her too. He didn't want her to think ill of him. "Witch-sama, I'm glad you were able to reunite with your kin." The witch gave him a gentle smile. She'd smiled like that the entire time Nikolaus was there. She must have felt reassured, seeing the boy she couldn't raise grow up strong among humans. Nikolaus still hadn't accepted her as the real thing, but that was likely because of her silence. The curse had kept her from interacting with others, had prevented her from raising him. If she could just explain that, Nikolaus would surely change his tune. Maybe she was thinking the same. "By the way, shall I tell the court magician about your curse?" It had always been a secret between them. But if she wished, Leonhardt was willing to explain. Once he knew, Nikolaus might change, might become more supportive. Leonhardt offered, but the witch shook her head. "I see. So even her kin can't know, and yet I do." It was a secret too important to share even with her fellow demon. Leonhardt had only learned of it by chance, but it seemed she trusted him to keep it. They were the only two people in the world who shared this suffering. How could he not take joy in that? "Then let's keep it our little secret. Shall I escort you home, Witch-sama?" With a heartfelt smile, Leonhardt walked her back to her house. This way, he could protect her secret even from Nikolaus. He entrusted her to her attendant Noelle, waiting at the house, and then returned to the knight's quarters. The purple Mandragora had followed him back, and Ritter welcomed it with open arms. "Purple-chan, you came back to me, Commander Leonhardt. Good work, is Witch-sama safe?" "Yes, the court magician was visiting. I suppose the Mandragoras sensed it and gathered there as well." "Wait, the court magician? Good thing Purple-chan didn't get taken away, right? Right, Purple-chan?" Leonhardt averted his gaze from Ritter, who had started rubbing his cheek against the Mandragora again. His subordinates had apparently given up trying to stop him. Even if they looked away, the sounds still reached their ears. Leonhardt began to worry for his colleague's mental state. "Oops, Touching her exposed parts drains some of my magic. But hey, if it helps nourish you, Purple-chan, I don't mind. Honestly, at this point, maybe it was fine if the Mandragora sapped a little more of his energy. Might help him calm down. Chapter 32. When I returned home, I found Noelle anxiously looking around. Leonhardt, who had come back with me, explained the situation. It had been Nikolaus, the royal court magician usually stationed at the castle, and formerly believed to be the last surviving demon. He had already returned to the castle. After hearing all that, Noelle seemed to accept it. Then, Witch-sama, I'll be heading back. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to call. I'll help however I can. That's nice of you, but Leonhardt is just so endlessly kind. He was well liked by the villagers, too. Apparently he carried a curse that caused people to dislike him, which he masked by working even harder to be liked. Knowing that, I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy, and maybe even a small sense of kinship. If people found out I was a monster, they'd probably hate me too. So I also made an effort to be likable. That made us the same, didn't it? Right now, thanks to the Mandragoras and their efforts to seem harmless, the villagers were starting to believe that not all monsters were dangerous. If things went well, even when my true identity was exposed, they might say something like, "But the flower witch is harmless." That would be the ideal outcome. That person was a magician, wasn't he? That's why he came to see you, Witch-sama. I'm not actually a demon, though. Please don't come again. Nikolaus still suspected I was a fraud. He would probably keep visiting, and every time he did, I'd probably end up screaming inside. Witch-sama? Are you going to marry the magician? Absolutely not. Noelle suddenly asked something outrageous, and I shook my head furiously in my mind. I was a Mandragora. He was a human. Marriage was out of the question. I could form a bulb, but I couldn't get married. I see, well, I want to keep serving you, Witch-sama. I'll do my very best, so please don't throw me away. I'd never do that. Having you here helps so much. There was no one else who understood my intentions so well and could convey them to others so perfectly. If he wanted to stay, I definitely wanted him to. Though he did occasionally misinterpret things, and I had to be careful not to let him touch my face. His ability to act as an intermediary with humans was invaluable. When I patted Noel's head, he smiled happily and wagged his tail. All right, I'm tired today. Let's do something relaxing. Maybe gather some pure blooms and make a planter out of them. Since pure blooms served as food for mandragoras, we kept a basket filled with petals in the house. The villagers brought them regularly, so the basket was always overflowing. I see, Witch-sama. What are you going to do with the pure bloom petals? Well, I just want to be buried in them for a bit. I glanced around, looking for a large enough container. Through the window, I spotted Noel's usual bath bucket, a huge tub, big enough for a human to bathe in. I pointed to it to say I'd like to borrow it today. Got it, I'll get it ready. Please wait here, Witch-sama. Noelle took the basket from me and cheerfully ran outside. It seemed he'd understood what I wanted. He even lifted the big tub effortlessly and carried it down to the riverside. Beeskin really were strong. If I had to move the tub myself, I'd have to use plant manipulation. But waving vines and leaves around might scare people. It was a relief that Noelle could handle it. I was planning to add petals and soil and bury myself like a potted plant. But when I came around the back of the house, I found the tub filled with water and flower petals floating on top. Noelle stood nearby, beaming. Since you're in training, you always bathe in cold water, right? Usually in the river. But today I thought you might want to try something different. A floral water bath, it's ready. So close, but not quite. I hadn't intended to take a stylish bath. I just wanted to play with dirt and petals like potting soil. I'll stand guard out front so no one comes near. Please, take your time. He left with a smile. Since he had prepared it with good intentions, I figured, why not? I'd bathe in it. I created a screen of plants around the tub, forming a natural partition, just in case someone showed up unexpectedly. That way, no one would see my incomplete body. Then I stepped into the unexpectedly fancy water bath and, oh, it's delicious. This might actually be nice. The water, enriched by the nutrients of the pure blooms, tasted sweet. Come to think of it, watercress and other plants could be grown with hydroponics, just water and nutrients. This wasn't soil, but maybe it wasn't a bad substitute. The petals wilted a little when I touched them, and the water seemed to slowly decrease, but still, yeah, maybe I'll do this sometimes. Since I've got some time, maybe I'll check on the village, see how things are going. As I soaked in the water, I decided to synchronize my awareness with one of the Mandragora saplings like watching TV to see how the village was doing. What I was most curious about was the knights. With Nikolaus showing up, Leonhardt might be fine, but what about the others? Had it rekindled their suspicion? The purple one's probably there. Let's take a peek. I closed my eyes and synchronized with the purple Mandragora. What I saw was Ritter striking a bizarrely sexy pose. I was so shocked I wanted to scream, but both I and the Mandragora had sealed voices, so no sound escaped. Panicking, I immediately cut the link, but the Mandragora's memory flowed into me. And with that, one mystery was solved. So Ritter is the one teaching purple weird stuff? Apparently, when I synced with a sapling, I also gained access to its past memories, and now I understood exactly how Ritter had been treating purple, and I had mixed feelings about it. Is it really okay for someone to be this obsessed with a Mandragora? Still, Purple didn't seem to mind. Being constantly praised seemed to feel good, and it was trying to live up to his preferences. From the Mandragora's perspective, this was the best way to appear harmless. Yeah, but it's draining him. What if it gets labeled a threat? Based on the memories, Ritter had nuzzled against Purple so much that its cloth had slipped, and an energy-draining accident occurred. The sapling didn't seem to have my level of absorption, so no major harm was done, but it was still alarming. Ritter, oddly enough, seemed happy to be drained, but this couldn't continue. I'll tell Leonhardt later. We need to keep Ritter from getting too close to Purple. It's dangerous. Since I could safely speak to Leonhardt, I'd explain the details and have him step in. For now, I decided to check on the other saplings, just in case any other accidents were happening. As I watched their memories unfold like surveillance footage, I realized something. These were basically recording-enabled security cameras, Chapter 33. This feels like a privacy invasion, but there's no footage of the inside of people's houses. I guess it's basically like street surveillance cameras, so maybe it's fine? The memory visuals from the seedlings aren't like a real surveillance camera that records everything constantly. They seem to forget the uneventful, unchanging scenery. It's especially clear when they're watching the village entrances. They only remember the moments someone enters or exits. In that sense, it's more like a motion-activated security camera. Seems like they do remember interactions with villagers, though, like who talked to them or who seems to like them. According to their memories, each seedling seems to have a particular villager they're fond of, someone who pets them or gives them treats. They'll approach those people on their own. It's kind of like a cat remembering who feeds it. But this, too, is likely a tactic to demonstrate their harmlessness. In other words, they're targeting people who seem easy to win over. Ritter is a prime example. It also seems the other seedlings have been influenced by the purple one and are now trying to develop their own personalities. Well, I guess this side of things isn't much of a problem. It helps with the whole "we're harmless" image. This doesn't need suppressing. If left alone, the seedlings will likely start showing more individual quirks. The water in the bath barrel was getting low, so I got out and put on my clothes. I used vines to tip over the tub and drain the remaining water and wilted petals. That's when I noticed the white petals drifting down the river. Are there more purifying flower petals than usual? The purifying flowers grow along the river that stretches up to the edge of the magical wasteland. Their flowers bloom and scatter after breaking down toxins or rot, so thanks to the wasteland's influence, the river is always carrying a few white petals, but the amount seems to have increased. It might just be coincidence, though. Did a powerful toxic creature get born? That's scary. This only reaffirms that living peacefully in a human village is the best option. And that means I really have to get Ritter to stop his weird behavior. If he keeps getting drained and dies on me, that'd be a problem. When I talk to Leonhardt, it's best if no one else is around. My voice spreads too easily. The first skill I acquired when I was born was echoing voice. It activates automatically and makes my voice carry far. Thanks to that, I survived in the mountains, but it's a real hassle when living among humans. There's no way I can let them hear me, except for Leonhardt. I wonder if I can make some kind of soundproof room. Then I could invite Leonhardt in. I could use sound-absorbing plants and build a wall out of the same stuff that mutes my voice. That would create a small, private space for confidential talks. It might look like a plant-made basket or a topiary, so visually it wouldn't seem too out of place. Though for me, it would kind of feel like letting a human inside my own body. I could probably do it if I really tried. But then I realized, if it's just the two of us alone in an enclosed space, how would that look? Technically, I'm not female. I'm a dual-gender body, but to a human, it'd still look like a man and a woman. That would be a huge hassle for Leonhardt. Better not. So I'll stick to clearing the area of people and whispering instead. If I keep my voice low, it shouldn't spread too far. It should only reach as far as I can see at most. As long as I make absolutely sure no one's around when I speak, it'll be fine. As I was thinking that and heading back to the front of the house, I found Noel and Eli waiting. "Oh, Witch-sama, perfect timing. This merchant said he has some business with you. Hello there, Witch. I hope you're doing well. You look as stunning as ever." Eli greeted me with the same sycophantic smile and rubbing hands as usual. I gave him a polite smile in return. Come to think of it, I still don't have a clear idea of what I actually look like. I've only ever seen myself in water reflections. I'm here to collect the fairy candy jam you had made, and of course I've brought payment for the labor. I'll go get the jam. As Eli held up a pouch full of clinking coins, Noel gave him a somewhat rude look before heading into the house to fetch it. Watching the boy's small back retreat, Eli scratched his head. Well, he sure doesn't like me. I guess he really does care about you, huh, Witch? Noel apparently still hasn't forgiven Eli for once trying to kill the seedlings and for suspecting whether I was a real witch. He only helped now because I agreed to the business deal. Honestly, since his suspicions were justified, I don't blame him. But from Noel's point of view, it must have been unforgivable. The only others who've doubted me this much are Eli and Nikolaus. Maybe Eli has a skill that lets him see status, like Nikolaus, and since my mana completely overshadows his, it made things hard to read and triggered his suspicions. I don't know what others see when they look at my status, but for someone who uses status as a measure of judgment, not being able to read mine must have seemed eerie. That would explain his initial caution. By the way, Witch, I wanted to offer you a gift today. A little apology and a thank you. With that, he pulled a large cloth-covered object from the back of his wagon. Just then, Noel returned carrying several baskets full of jam jars. Oh, Beastkin kids really are strong. Mind helping me load those onto the cart? Fine, what's that board? Heh? I'd like you to see for yourself, young Noel. But go ahead and put the baskets over there first. After Noel placed the jam on the wagon and returned, Eli removed the cloth. Underneath was a gleaming silver mirror, framed in ornately carved wood, clearly an expensive item. Oh, wow. So this is what I look like, gotta say. I really did craft myself into a stunning beauty. It was the first time I truly recognized my own appearance. A seductive, enchanting woman smiled back at me from the mirror, but I'm just a Mandragora inside. Somehow I felt kind of sorry that such a beautiful face was wasted on a Mandragora like me. Whoa, this thing must be super valuable. The carving is gorgeous. But it really suits you, Witch-sama. The frame was designed with floral motifs and had a glamorous plant-themed style that fit perfectly with my flower-filled house. Noel wagged his tail in joy as he peered into the mirror. I'm glad you like it. Young Noel, here's your payment for the jam. Please accept it. Isn't this a bit much for a down payment? No. I'm confident this will turn a healthy profit. I don't understand the value of money, but Noel didn't seem to think it was an unreasonable amount. He accepted the pouch of coins, and with the mirror in hand, looked quite pleased. His tail didn't stop wagging. If there's anything else you need, I'd be happy to get it for you as a priority. What do you think? That offer gave me an idea. I can control any plant I've absorbed, but most of them come from the magical wasteland. If I had access to more rare or region-specific plants, I might find uses for them. What I really need right now are regular, edible plants. The stuff that doesn't grow wild, I haven't absorbed that at all. This village grows wheat as a staple crop, but other vegetables are limited to small backyard gardens. The variety isn't great. Plants developed for human consumption, nutritious and tasty thanks to centuries of selective breeding. I don't need them myself, but Noel should eat well. If he's living on nothing but wasteland flora, his nutrition might be unbalanced. That's not good for a growing child. So I pointed at the fields, then at Noel, then at my mouth. Eli looked puzzled, but Noel seemed to understand and looked up at me with tears of joy in his eyes. Witch-sama wants food plants. Yep, that's right. I see you're right. This village has a lot of rare plants, but not much in the way of common vegetables. Got it. I'll prioritize bringing in any plants you don't already have around here. Eli agreed readily, which was a relief. With that taken care of and the business talk winding down, Noel carried the mirror inside. Then, Oh, that mirror, by the way. It's enchanted with a special magic. Wait, what? It's a truth-reflecting mirror. If someone's using illusion magic to change their appearance, it'll show their real form. So I suggest placing it where it can reflect the front entrance. That way, you can easily see whether someone approaching is actually human. It'll give you some peace of mind. Which means that if I'd been disguising myself with some kind of magic or skill, the moment I looked into that mirror, everything would have been exposed. I let out a silent scream as I smiled. Eli just grinned back like nothing happened. This guy definitely still didn't trust me. He's harder to read than a Mandragora. Chapter 33.5. Eli primarily operated within the territory of House El Nato, but his largest business client by far was the frontier Margrave, Lord El Nato himself. Since the Margrave had been particularly concerned about the state of Bit Village, where the witch now lived, Eli had been summoned for updates several times. So, this witch, she's not a threat? Yes, not at the moment. She does indeed control plants at will and devotes herself to the villagers. There are animated mandragoras under her care, but I've appraised them myself, and they appear to be completely harmless. The Lord had a personal benefactor in Bit Village, which made him especially concerned about its proximity to the magical wasteland. Up to now, he'd relied on Eli, who regularly passed through the village as a traveling merchant, to keep an eye on it and report back if anything suspicious happened. Given that it was only natural for the sudden appearance of a witch to catch the Lord's attention, the villagers seemed unusually accepting of her, so Eli had been keeping his distance and quietly observing her actions. She doesn't act like a villain, but after seeing that status. When he'd used appraise to check her status, the text had distorted, twisting and trembling in unnatural ways. Eli's magic power wasn't very high, so failing to appraise someone wasn't unusual, but in those cases the text should appear as solid black blocks. He had never seen anything like that before. It meant the target was either overwhelmingly stronger than him or not human at all. Keep watching her, the Holy Knights concluded she's the real thing. But if that's true, we really can't afford any hostility from her. A true demon would be a one-person army. Even though the court mage Nikolaus, a known survivor of the demon race, was still around, this witch had likely lived far longer. If she had survived the cataclysmic war against the dragons, her power would be immeasurable. If she ever turned on humanity, she would become a new disaster in herself. The Lord's concern was warranted. She's been cooperative so far. I've never felt hostility or ill intent from her. And here, this is jam made from one of her plants. I had it appraised, and it's perfectly safe. I'd like to market it as a specialty product from the village. Eli had purchased a jar of jam made by the Beastkin boy Noel and presented it as a sample to the Lord. According to the status readout, it had no toxicity, no addictive qualities, and was both safe and highly nutritious. While it should be consumed in moderation like any other food, it was undeniably a high-quality product. With Eli's merchant's eye, he was confident it would sell well. He had taken on the dangerous task of assessing a mysterious witch after all. Surely he deserved a little reward. I'll authorize the sale. My daughter will probably love it, and I'll take a few jars myself. Ah, right, one more thing. Deliver a gift to the witch, but don't tell her it's from me. Understood. What should I bring? Something a woman might like. It's a mirror, enchanted to reveal one's true form, useful if someone's using magic or a skill to disguise themselves. I got it from the court mage himself. Frankly, I think it suits the witch far better than me. He also asked me to pass along his regards. Use it as the gift. Eli felt his face freeze in a strained smile. That meant if the witch wasn't what she appeared to be, the mirror would expose her the moment she looked into it. My lord, if it reveals she's not a witch? You said she bears no hostility. If that's true, there's nothing to fear. This is why nobles are terrifying. It was a subtle way of saying, take responsibility for your words. Eli had no way of refusing. With this gift thrust into his hands, he could only laugh bitterly. All I can do now is hope the witch is genuinely kind. What's worse, they even used a teleportation circle to send him directly to the outskirts of the village. Clearly, someone wanted answers fast. Whether it was the Lord himself or the court mage who was impatient was unclear. That woman, strange as she was, had never given off any sense of malice. The villagers clearly adored her. That alone was worth trusting. So now Eli had to place all his hopes on that trust, confirm her identity using the mirror, and report back. It was obvious if Eli didn't return, they'd draw their own conclusions. Well, here goes. Merchants need guts if she turns out to be human. I can finally relax. Bracing himself, Eli headed for the witch's house. Plastering on his best merchant's smile, he greeted Noel, who was tending to the garden. The boy replied that the witch was bathing and asked him to wait a bit. Eli felt a brief wave of relief, but barely a minute later, the witch returned. Perhaps she had sensed his presence. Still too perfect. She looks like a doll, if she really were artificial. He fought to keep his nervousness hidden behind a grin and began with the usual small talk and business discussion. Noel's thoughts were always easy to read, but the witch's expression never changed. She smiled as always and said nothing. She didn't speak and her tone never shifted, so it was impossible to read her emotions. Why is everyone around me so unreadable lately? My stomach can't take this. But he couldn't disobey the Lord's orders. His future depended on it. So, witch, today I've brought you a little gift, a token of apology and gratitude. Doing his best not to show how tense he was, he pulled out the mirror he'd been entrusted with. He hoped that by unveiling it in front of her devoted servant, Noelle, she wouldn't be able to lash out even if she was hiding something. Whoa, this must be really expensive. The carving is incredible, but it suits you perfectly, Witch Sama. The mirror reflected the witch's image, a stunning woman and the smiling face of a joyful young boy. Only then did Eli finally relax. It looked like she was really human. Now I can finally get back to business without worry. Sorry for doubting you, but I had to do it to survive. I'm sure a clever witch like you understands. It wasn't exactly an apology, but to make it up to her, he resolved to do everything he could to fulfill her requests from now on, and the magic mirror would serve to protect her from the many people who were surely going to come her way. Oh, and witch, about that mirror. It's enchanted with special magic. He openly revealed the secret, implicitly admitting he had doubted her. The witch smiled as if to say she had known all along. Truly, she is impossible to read. Chapter 34. The day I received the mirror, I was too exhausted and drained to do anything, so I waited until the next day. I asked Noel to go fetch Leonhart. Leonhart's most noticeable feature is his eye patch. I covered my own left eye with my hand and pointed at my face a few times to show Noel. He immediately understood who I meant. Do you need Leonhart-san? Should I go call him for you? Yes, please. Understood. I'll go right away. I had also ordered the purple sprout to bring Leonhart just in case, but with Noel going, I knew it would be more reliable. I watched Noel head off and decided to do a bit of remodeling to the house before my guest arrived. It won't look any different on the outside, though. I touched one of the walls and grew plants along it. The house already had ivy trailing its walls, so I just added different plants on top. I used parts of the lid that sealed my voice, and also a plant called silent weed. Both have the property of absorbing vibrations, so by growing plenty of them, the idea was to prevent any sound from leaking outside the house. But if I overdid it, they'd absorb too much, and I wouldn't be able to hear anything inside either, so it needed careful moderation. I adjusted it a few times. This should be about right. Let's test it just in case. I deliberately knocked the heel of my shoe inside the house to make a sound, and confirmed that, while it was slightly muffled, it hadn't disappeared entirely. Then I stepped outside, shut the door, and manipulated the plants inside to produce noise. Since it was easiest to understand if Lilybell played music, I had it perform a tune. The order should have gone through, but I couldn't hear anything. Yep, completely silent. When I opened the door, music resembling a Christmas theme flowed out properly. With this, my home was now soundproof. Witch Sama? I brought Leonhart-san. Were you waiting outside this whole time? Just then, Noel came rushing back. He looked pleased to have completed his task, so I patted his head in thanks. He wagged his tail happily in response. That's how he always reacted to praise. His head seems a bit higher than before. Maybe he was in a growth spurt. He could have gotten taller from eating properly. It's good for children to grow. I'll keep feeding him lots to help him grow even more. I might have started sounding like the witch from the candy house, but I don't intend to eat Noel. I'm not an evil witch. Witch Dono, is something the matter? Leonhart followed shortly after, carrying the purple sprout on one arm. I needed to talk to him about that sprout, but I didn't want anyone else hearing. I tapped Noel's shoulder and pointed toward the garden to ask him to stay outside for a while. If you're calling me in the morning, it must be important. Got it, I'll be working outside. Yes. Noel really has ESP-level intuition. Noel trotted off toward the garden. Leonhardt still looked a little tense, so I smiled to reassure him and beckoned him inside. He bent his elbow to make a seat, and the purple sprout posed seductively with its legs crossed on top of it. I picked it up in one swift motion. I don't want even a chance of our voices leaking out, so we should keep it to whispers. But Leonhardt is tall. This made it hard for my voice to reach. I went farther into the room, placed the purple sprout on the table, pulled out a chair, and beckoned again. He looked a bit puzzled and asked, "Should I sit here?" I nodded. Once Leonhardt sat down, his head was finally below mine. I placed my right hand gently on his shoulder to keep him still, then cupped his ear with my left hand without letting my face get too close. If I held his ear like this, it wouldn't look strange. I doubt anyone would suspect I was physically maintaining distance. "I have a favor to ask. I want you to tell Ritter to be more mindful around the purple sprout. There've already been minor incidents of it sucking people. It's dangerous. But saying don't touch it because it's dangerous would be the same as admitting it's a threat. That's hard to say. I don't want to be seen as an evil witch." My voice trembled as I whispered softly. Even with the surrounding plants that absorb sound, he could still hear me clearly. It showed just how strong his sound-spreading skill was. Still, it probably wouldn't leak outside. I couldn't convey all this with gestures, and I don't want to order the sprout to stay away either. It had finally succeeded in coming off as harmless. I wanted it to continue interacting safely and appropriately. Having said what I needed to, I slowly pulled away. But Leonhardt suddenly looked down and covered even his uncovered eye. "Understood? He seems a little off, but as long as he got the message, it's fine. The sprout should also be careful not to absorb humans anymore. Maybe because it had sucked energy from Ritter. The sprout's leaves were unusually glossy. It gave a salute while holding a weird pose with its legs crossed. Clearly, it had been taught all sorts of unnecessary things. Ritter has terrible taste. Witch Dono, was that all?" "Yes, that's it. Then, if you'll excuse me." "Oh, right, you must be working. Thank you, and sorry for calling you over like this. Here, take some of Noel's fairy candy jam with you." I had planned to serve tea since he came all this way, but it seemed he was still on duty and needed to leave. I felt bad for calling him. At the very least, I handed him a jar of colorful fairy candy jam as a parting gift and waved lightly. He smiled awkwardly and said, "If anything comes up, please feel free to call on me again," before heading off. The purple sprout followed behind, probably going back to the night's lodging. As I watched their backs disappear, Noel came toddling back from the garden. All done talking? Yes, it really was a small matter. I almost feel bad for making him come. "Witch Sama, did you do something to Leonhardt-san?" He seemed a little off. "I didn't do anything, I think. My voice-based attacks shouldn't affect him since he's immune to curses. Still, if there's even the slightest risk, maybe I shouldn't talk to him too much either." But Leonhardt must have passed on the message, because the next day he came back with Ritter to offer a formal apology. "Witch Dono, Ritter would like to speak with you. However, if his presence displeases you, feel free to turn him away." No, it's fine. I'm not angry or anything." Leonhardt had made him wait at a distance until I gave permission. He must have thought I was furious with Ritter. The moment Ritter was brought before me, he dropped into a deep 90-degree bow. "My deepest apologies, Witch Dono. But I swear my feelings for Purple Chan aren't just a fling. I'll behave with more restraint from now on, so please forgive me." I froze, completely unsure what he meant. Inside, I was screaming, "Wait, what?" But none of it showed on my face. Next to me, Noel tugged gently at my sleeve, looking genuinely concerned. "Witch Sama, maybe you should cure this man. It would be a waste of medicine. Honestly, I doubt even Witch Dono could fix this. An incurable illness, could it really be a sickness of love? But Ritter's object of affection is just a Mandragora. Maybe it's better described as a diseased love. He swore to avoid any inappropriate contact, but something told me Ritter had already gone past the point of no return." Chapter 35. It had been a while since Ritter's incredibly bizarre greeting. According to Leonhardt, the purple bud and Ritter were maintaining an appropriate distance, but I didn't have the courage to look into the purple bud's memories. I always check with Hanzo directly, but the responses from the child sprouts are gestures only. Without reading their memories, I can't understand the details. Noel always seems to understand what I'm trying to say just from my gestures. That's really hard to do. I can sense vague emotions, but if I want to know specifics, I have to synchronize and read their memories. But the more I think about it, the more terrified I am of what I might see. It's all because Ritter said, This isn't a game. I never imagined there could be someone with such a perverse fetish who gets genuinely serious about a Mandragora, harmless monster or not. Well, my old world had a genre called furry, so maybe Ritter's like that. I can't relate, but it seems like people with unusual preferences, whether they're called something files or something ists, exist in every world. Even if I can't understand that kind of emotion, I won't deny it. Everyone has their own tastes. The existence of different people creates diversity, and just rejecting them isn't right. I'm also a bit different from normal, so I'd rather not get weeded out. Mandragoras are part of diversity too, probably. I was lost in those thoughts, sipping the tea Noel had made for me when the lily of the valley growing above the front door chimed. This house was built to be soundproof, so we can't hear knocking. That's why I commanded the plant to ring a bell when someone stood near the entrance, both from inside and out. Someone's here, I'll go check. Okay, thanks. Noel headed to the front door and opened it. When I glanced over, I saw Leonhardt standing there and felt a small twinge of discomfort. He often drops by to make sure everything's okay, but he'd already visited just an hour ago. Maybe something happened? As soon as I thought that, I had a bad feeling about the opposite direction and turned my gaze there. My eyes can perceive a wider field than humans, but unless I consciously focus, things can appear blurry. And what I saw reflected in the magic mirror wasn't Leonhardt. It was a human who strongly suspected I wasn't a demon. The moment I recognized that figure, a scream rose up inside me. Huh, Leonhardt-san? You can't hide it once you're seen like that. Ah, magic user-sama. The person in disguise seemed to realize the mirror had revealed their true form. The air shimmered like heat distortion, and Leonhardt's image vanished, replaced by Nikolaus in a robe. Noel watched the transformation in surprise. So it was magic. I thought the scent was different from Leonhardt-san's. I see. I didn't think about the scent. That would give it away. Heh, yeah. He must have taken that as praise. Noel wagged his tail happily. He seems to admire demons, so he also seems fond of Nikolaus, who's a magic user. Without invitation, Nikolaus strode into the house, sat in the chair across from me at the table, and Noel went to prepare tea for this uninvited guest. That was terrifying. If not for the mirror, I might have been fooled. I should thank Eli. Eli told me that if I set up the magic mirror to face the entrance, I'd be able to spot anything in disguise. I'm really grateful for that gift. Well, it's working properly, so I guess you're not some monster in disguise after all. Huh? Since you're using my gift, I assume you like it? I tilted my head, confused. The mirror was a gift from Eli. I received it a few hours after Nikolaus showed up. Why would he say it was his gift? Why? Because you gave me something unnecessary, so I returned the favor. After I went back to the castle, I found a merchant headed to Bit Village. Thanks to your potion, I had more than enough magic power to use teleportation magic too. So after returning to the castle, Nikolaus met a merchant bound for Bit Village, passed the magic mirror to him via Eli, then teleported the mirror there himself. In hindsight, I should have realized only demons are likely capable of crafting enchanted mirrors like that. It was made by Nikolaus, so he still suspects me. Enough to send that mirror on the very same day. I'm seriously glad I evolved my body into a human form. If I were just using illusion magic to disguise myself, the mirror would have reflected a Mandragora, and I would have definitely screamed. I mean, I'm the one who'd be screaming. There was once a suspicious person rumored to be a demon who turned out to be a monster. Back then, mirrors became popular as protective charms. I just gave you one of the leftovers. It's not a big deal. Apparently, there was once a monster that disguised itself with magic or skills to lure in and prey on humans. Hearing that story from Nikolaus, it felt like he was asking me directly, "Aren't you a monster too?" I nearly broke into a cold sweat. Well, I don't have sweat glands, so maybe I should say I nearly condensed. Too bad you're not a monster. If you were, I'd take you back with me. Hey. Nikolaus stared at me through the mirror. Of course, the reflection showed me smiling brightly, but I wasn't enjoying myself at all. I was terrified. I wanted him to leave already. Ah, right, here. Take this. What is this? I can make my own magic recovery potions, so don't underestimate me. Nikolaus pulled out a small vial containing blue liquid, likely a magic recovery potion. It seems he didn't appreciate me offering one as a bribe last time. Maybe it bruised his pride. I definitely misjudged that move. I want to bury myself in a hole, but not dig my own grave. I've been growing Mandragora too, still have plenty of ingredients. I don't need your help. Then it hit me. I create potions by structuring them around myself as a core ingredient and reproducing plants through my diversification abilities. I can synthesize them internally. But when humans make potions, they need materials, and the main ingredient in magic recovery potions is Mandragora. So that vial Nikolaus is holding contains liquid made from. This guy is terrifying. I'm sorry for running my mouth about diversity. No one can accept everything, and that's okay. Just please leave already. There are people we can't understand. Showing a Mandragora a potion made from Mandragora, imagine doing that to a human. It's awful. Way too awful. You mad scientist. Chapter 36. Noel returned with tea for Nikolaus. He served cookies made with berries and walnuts, along with a small jar of fairy candy jam on the side. Nikolaus drank his tea straight and spread jam on the cookies. He might actually have a sweet tooth. Meanwhile, I asked Noel for a refill to calm my nerves and stirred in a generous amount of jam. I'll go back to my room so I don't get in the way of your conversation. Call me if you need anything. Ah, yes. It's not really the kind of conversation kids should hear. Ugh, Noel, if anything, I wish you'd stay here with me. I wanted to keep Noel around for emotional support, but if Nikolaus said the conversation wasn't suitable for children, then I couldn't exactly object. I patted his head and praised his hospitality, and watched his cheerfully wagging tail until it disappeared behind his bedroom door. For some reason, Nikolaus had been staring at me intently the whole time, and it was making me uneasy. I wasn't doing anything weird, though. You really don't talk at all, do you? If it's inconvenient, use this. I can read ancient script, so at least answer me with this. As he spoke, Nikolaus took out a board that looked like glass, along with a pen. Curious. I watched as he held the pen with a bored expression and slid it across the surface. Wherever the pen moved, purple lines appeared on the board. Then, he laid the pen flat and swiped it across the board, erasing the line. Apparently, you write with the pen held upright, and erase by laying it flat. Oh, is this one of those magic drawing boards? It resembled those magnetic sketchboards you can draw on over and over, often sold as children's toys. They use magnetism to make lines and are easy to erase. Now that he'd handed it to me, I tried drawing a line. For some reason, the line came out green. So that's the color of your magic power. Apparently, the pen absorbs the user's magic to produce a color. You can't draw in full color, but it's easy to tell who wrote what, so that's kind of useful. I wasn't great at drawing, so I doodled a simple flower doodle anyone could manage. It also reinforced my plant witch aesthetic. Still, the fact he went out of his way to bring this probably meant he wanted to interrogate me. Terrifying. I'd better be careful not to write anything unnecessary. The changes in the demon wastes are ongoing. If something starts coming out of there. Nikolaus trailed off mid-sentence, his tone unusually serious. There's literally a monster from the demon wastes sitting right in front of him, but I wondered what he'd do if he found that out. I waited for him to continue. Well, I'm sure you could handle it on your own, but I'm a royal court mage tasked with national defense, so don't try to deal with it alone.
What I mean is, don't hog all the credit. Make sure you call me too. The knights might serve as a delay at best, but I'm stronger than them.
I see. Nikolaus is considered a major military asset for humans. Since someone like me, a monster, is mistaken for a witch, it shows just how powerful demons must be individually. Still scary. If my identity gets exposed, I probably won't be able to run away. Am I being counted as part of their forces too? If they think I'm the witch who survived fighting a dragon, then it's not strange that the Lord or even the country sees me as an asset against monsters. If I fight alongside humans against monsters, they might see me as an ally, and even if my true identity is exposed one day, they might not see me as an enemy that must be destroyed. That would be a good outcome. I don't really mind hunting monsters anyway, the ones that attack our food after all. Aside from fellow Mandragora, I see other monsters as enemies or ingredients. I feel no camaraderie with other species. If something threatens the peaceful life I have with humans, I'll fight back. I'll probably scream in terror while doing it, but I don't think I'd lose. You can keep that board, use it freely. Even if other humans can't read ancient script, drawings can still get the message across. That's true. It might help me give more precise instructions to Noel. Nikolaus is a scary person, but the sketchboard is handy, so if he's giving it to me, I'll be grateful. I wrote thank you and held it up for Nikolaus to see. He snorted softly and looked away. Your magic potion was surprisingly effective. With just one vial, I could transport 20 people back and forth. In an emergency, if you were in charge of potion production, we could move large groups quickly. How many could you make in a day? Nikolaus can use teleportation magic to transport people and things over long distances, but it consumes a huge amount of magic, so without potions, mass transport is impossible. However, magic recovery potions don't last long. You can't just stockpile them, and when made by humans, they require a lot of work. Harvesting fresh mandragora, finely grading it, and, no, don't think about that in detail. Anyway, it takes time and isn't suited to mass production. Normally, brewing requires skill and knowledge. My internal synthesis is only possible thanks to my diversification and potion brewing skills. What I can make and how much directly affects what I can contribute. He's probably trying to assess that in preparation for an emergency. I wrote about 100, give or take. Huh? What are you, a monster? Eep? And I even gave a modest number. I meant to give an amount I could make casually while still having enough for myself in case I had to flee or fight, but I got labeled a monster anyway. Maybe I unknowingly gave a number beyond human capability. Worried he might see through me. I froze, but Nikolaus looked more exasperated than serious. Still, his words are terrifying. Well, I don't have a heart, but they're emotionally damaging. I guess it's heart wounding in a metaphorical sense. Looks like it's best to leave potion stuff to you. That way I can focus on magic. According to Leonhardt, Nikolaus is a mage capable of using all types of magic. Unlike previous demons who specialized in one branch, he's able to do everything by himself. Other races can use magic too, but their inherent magic capacity is lower, so there's a huge performance gap. As a jack-of-all-trades mage, Nikolaus is meant to handle a wide range of situations, probably the kingdom's official stance. So, he used to make potions himself, but now I'll support that role, freeing him up to expand his magic arsenal. If they see me as a support asset, that's actually a good thing. If I go to the front lines and fight monsters, there's a high chance someone will figure out my true nature. But if I just quietly brew potions and prove I'm useful, I can avoid combat, and I won't have to face monsters directly, which is great. Win-win. That demon waste area is changing rapidly. The chances of a disaster are significant, so if you notice anything strange, just tell a knight or something. Understood. Well, then I'm busy, so I'll be going. Finally, he was leaving. I got up and followed Nikolaus as he walked toward the exit. If he's so busy, he doesn't need to visit so often. Am I really still that suspicious to him? If he's still trying to uncover my identity, who knows what tricks he might pull. Just seeing him off at the front door didn't feel safe enough, so I followed him all the way to the teleportation magic circle to make sure he actually left. You really didn't need to follow me this far, honestly. Well, I'm nervous, okay. Unless I saw him leave with my own eyes, I wouldn't be able to relax. He disguised himself as Leonhardt earlier. Who knows what else he might do when no one's looking. I had to see it through to the end. See you, Flower Witch? As the magic circle began to glow, I thought I heard Nikolaus quietly murmur that on his way out. Maybe I misheard. Chapter 36.5, Nikolaus Part 1. The quality isn't good enough. Nikolaus muttered as he held up a magic recovery potion that had been evaluated as high quality. It was made from a mandragora he had raised himself. He'd been keeping that mandragora for several years, but it never showed any particularly unusual traits, so he decided to use it up. After seeing the familiar claimed by the woman calling herself the Flower Witch, it was understandable that he lost interest in his own. As an ingredient, it was pretty decent, I think. But even then, it's not enough. That woman seems to be brewing using magic, and you can't compete with that using ordinary methods. The royal castle had facilities for growing medicinal herbs, and mandragora was raised there as well. But unlike Nikolaus, who experimented with nutrient blends and stress-inducing methods to promote growth, the castle simply followed standard procedures. The resulting quality was average at best. He tested potions made from the castle's mandragora as well, and just as expected, they came out as mediocre quality. If the quality is different, the potency and even the taste are different too. No way to win using conventional herbology. Well, she's got more experience than I do and is a specialist, so I guess it's only natural. Witches who specialize in plant-based magic are naturally experts in herbal medicine too. Nikolaus couldn't help feeling not just frustration, but a strange sense of admiration toward someone who seemed so completely out of reach. She had treated him like a child and handed him a recovery potion. Next time he saw her, he'd be sure to show her his potion in return. Nicolaus Dono, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the witch. My father, the king, is also concerned. For you to want to go check on her again in such a short period, could it be there's something suspicious? When Nicolaus submitted his application to visit Bit Village, Crown Prince Cedric looked at him suspiciously and asked. Nicolaus frowned slightly. Whether she's really a witch or not? Well, I can't say for sure. She is suspicious, I guess. She's way too nice. But the royal family wasn't concerned about that kind of suspicion. What they were asking was whether she posed any threat to the nation. In other words, they wanted to know if she had any hostile intentions. Not really. She hasn't done anything strange, has she? Then why are you going to check on her? Because the demon wastes concern me. I don't trust the knight's reports. I want to see for myself. And while I'm at it, I'll check on the suspicious witch, too. What's wrong with that? If it makes you feel better, I'll also confirm whether she's willing to cooperate in case of an emergency. I see. Then your request is approved, but please don't disappear on us like you did last time. Yeah. Cedric was earnest and annoyingly fussy. Nicolaus left before the Crown Prince could launch into another lecture and return to his lab. Now that he had permission to visit Bit Village again, he would be seeing that witch in a few days. He began considering what to bring with him. Besides the magic recovery potion, maybe that sketchboard would be useful. Paper and pens are bulky and casual conversation creates waste. He remembered an item he could use instead, something you can write on and erase over and over, the sketchboard. It was originally designed for children, letting them use a magic-activated pen to draw pictures or letters and develop their magic power through play. While common in the capital, such items were likely rare in remote villages like Bit. Well, I'll bring one. After all, we can communicate in ancient script. Even simple written communication would be more efficient. If the witch wanted, he could even teach her modern script. Nicolaus headed into town and searched for a sketchboard that wouldn't look out of place in the hands of an adult woman. Since it was originally a noble children's teaching tool, most of the designs were overly cute. But recently there had been an increase in simple, elegant designs suitable for adults as memo pads. This one could work. He picked out a transparent glass-like board and pen, simple and unassuming. Nothing childish about it. It wouldn't look strange even if the witch used it regularly. The sketchboard cost 2 large silver coins, considering that an average adult commoner could live for about a month on 10 large silvers. It wasn't exactly cheap, but to Nicolaus the price meant little. With preparations complete, he headed for Bit Village. From a distance, the demon wastes didn't appear to be changing visibly. Along the river, though, the purity blossoms were in full bloom. They were proof that the flower witch was protecting the villagers from the toxins of the demon wastes. Without them, the area would be completely uninhabitable for both humans and animals by now. I should check whether the mirror arrived safely. Now then, what disguise would catch her off guard? Nicolas planned to use illusion magic to change his appearance and visit her home. As he considered his options, one face came to mind, that of the eye-patch-wearing knight who seemed close to the witch. I'll go with that one. That knight projected a friendly persona, the exact opposite of Nicolas's usual image. The witch seemed fond of him too. If he showed up in the knight's form, would she react differently? This is purely for investigation purposes. It's possible the knight is conspiring with her, helping her fool everyone. If I show up as him, she might lower her guard. The knight's investigation report had clearly taken the witch's side, which made Nicolaus suspect they might share a special connection. He convinced himself it was necessary to verify this and cast the transformation spell, taking on the knight's appearance. When he arrived at the witch's home, he noticed some changes. As he stood before the door, he heard the clear chime of a bell. Apparently she had repurposed a musical plant into a doorbell of sorts. Soon, the beastman child serving the witch, Noelle, opened the door. Through the entryway, Nicolaus could see the witch seated at a table. She glanced over at him briefly but didn't show any change in expression as she brought her cup to her lips. Then she slowly turned her gaze toward the mirror positioned to reflect the front door. When she saw Nicolaus's reflection in the mirror, her face lit up with a clear smile. What an idiot, getting happy over this. So the mirror he gave her was being put to good use. She must have liked it. Really, smiling over something like that? What a fool. Chapter 36.6, Nicolaus, Part 2. Though he had disguised himself as the eye-patch-wearing knight, it was pointless once he saw the mirror positioned facing the front door. Nicolaus softly muttered release and dispelled the illusion. The beastman child watched him with impressed eyes. So it was magic. I thought the scent was different from Leonhardt Sans. Heh, I see I hadn't considered scent. That can give you away, huh? Among demons, the amount of magic power they possess makes it easy to sense each other's presence when nearby. Knowing that from his last visit, Nikolaus had suppressed his magic this time and changed his appearance, but he hadn't thought to disguise his scent. Transforming into someone else is seriously difficult, and besides, that one doesn't seem to be in disguise. The flower witch had smiled at Nikolaus as though welcoming him, so he sat down at the table across from her. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the mirror he had given her. Placed like that, it was clearly meant to check anyone entering the house. If she was using it that actively, then she must have liked it. You're using my gift, huh? Guess that means you like it? That's what he assumed, but still asked just to confirm. The witch smiled softly in agreement, but tilted her head slightly. She must have realized that Nikolaus had made the enchanted mirror, but was now wondering about his reason for gifting it. Why? Because you gave me an unnecessary gift. So I returned the favor. When I got back to the castle, I found a merchant headed to Bit Village. Thanks to your potion, I had surplus magic, so I could use teleportation magic with ease. Simply accepting the potion would have felt like being treated as a child, so he'd given something of equivalent value in return. When he returned to the castle, the lord of the Aeronato region had contacted him. A merchant Nikolaus was using to monitor the witch was due to report in. The timing had been just right. There wasn't time to craft something new. This was the only valuable practical item I could give her immediately. It was something that demonstrated his skills and was also useful to the witch in her daily life. Plus, since the mirror had been made some time ago, it would show how refined Nikolaus's magical abilities had become. Surely she'd stop treating him like a child now. Oh, right. I can't forget to show her this too. He pulled out a vial containing a high-quality magic recovery potion, the kind demons crafted as a rite of passage into adulthood. It wasn't top-tier like hers, but it was still high quality. When he'd first attempted it, the result had been low grade, so this wasn't amateur work anymore. Upon realizing it was a magic recovery potion, the witch smiled even more warmly than before. She looked genuinely pleased, like a proud parent watching a child grow. I can do anything on my own now. I've made it that far. The demon race used to be a collective of experts in their own fields. Because they lived long lives, they could devote themselves to one specialty and master it. Unlike the short-lived races, they didn't need to rush to train successors. Together, their specialized knowledge let them tackle any problem. But now Nikolaus was the only one left. So he had absorbed the knowledge left behind by all his people. Not enough to be a true expert, perhaps, but enough to deal with a wide range of problems on his own. Well, I probably don't need to learn any more about medicine or botany. If the flower witch truly was a demon, then she would be practically immortal. Nikolaus would never catch up to her in skill or experience, so it made more sense to focus on other things. Magic user Sama, here's your tea. Witch Sama, a refill for you too. The child named Noelle laid out tea and sweets on the table. The witch added an extra large spoonful of jam made from demon waste's plants into her cup, so Nikolaus used one of the cookies to scoop up some jam and tasted it. Sweet. If she puts in that much, it must be super sweet. So she likes sweet things, huh? She had secluded herself in the mountains for 500 years, so she probably didn't know about the selectively bred high-sugar fruits of the modern world. If he brought her some, she'd likely be happy. No, wait, showing off might make her sulk. That could be fun. He'd consider bringing some next time. Or maybe he'd bring confections made by capital artisans. Nikolaus had a sweet tooth himself and knew of some good shops. After all, 500 years had seen great advances in both culture and technique. She probably didn't know anything about life in the city. Someday he might even take her to a shop and surprise her. When the child offered to leave the room so as not to interrupt an important conversation, the witch patted his head in praise. Nikolaus found himself unable to look away from the scene for some reason. She doesn't speak, after all, but with the sketchboard, maybe she'd write me a message too. He pulled out the sketchboard he'd brought as a gift and showed it to her. As expected, she didn't know what it was, so he explained how it worked. Once she understood, she drew a line, and then for some reason started drawing a picture. Since the board was transparent, Nikolaus could see what she was drawing from across the table. It looked like a child's doodle, concentric circles like a flower, with petals formed by surrounding loops. What the heck is that supposed to be, praise or something? He barely managed to keep a straight face and changed the topic. He had already told Crown Prince Cedric that he would secure the witch's cooperation. If he could get her to confirm that in writing, then the kingdom would officially consider her an ally. And if the kingdom didn't view her as a threat, that would help protect her as well. She was finally living in the same land. He wouldn't let her be exiled again. If she fled, he'd never be able to confirm whether she was really a demon. The demon wastes are still changing. If monsters start emerging from there, there was no denying that monsters might eventually overflow from the demon wastes. The witch continued to smile serenely, not changing her expression at all. She must have expected this. That was probably why she chose to settle in Bit Village in the first place. She'd intended to fight for humanity from the start. Of course, she fought a dragon, after all. Back then, the demons also stood against catastrophe for the sake of humanity. I bet every one of them was a softie like her. That's why, Nicholas believed, if a disaster struck, this woman would march right into it alone. Well, I'm sure you could handle it on your own. But I'm a court magician with national defense duties. Don't take it all on yourself. She tilted her head at him in quiet puzzlement, so he added an explanation. Honestly, she was slow on the uptake sometimes. I mean, don't hog the credit. Call me too. The nights might be good for buying time, but I'm stronger. Nikolaus had refined his magic more than anyone, even among demons. As a fighter, he was far superior to other races. The idea of the witch relying on that eye patch knight instead was unbearable, a disgrace to his pride as a demon. The witch had a habit of treating Nikolaus like a child, so he had to set boundaries. Then again, compared to how long she had lived, he probably was a child. She didn't respond, only smiling again. Even when he urged her to write something on the board, all she gave him was a simple thank you. If this keeps up, she's definitely going to end up on the front lines. She probably can handle herself out there, but what if she never came back? Just imagining that made him nauseous. No, I need to keep her out of combat. If she can brew potions, she's plenty useful in a support role. That's her area of strength, and if she can prove her value there. The potion she made was top tier, more effective than anything Nikolaus had produced. With it, even high-level teleportation magic became easier. If she could make 10 bottles a day, she'd already be a substantial logistical asset. She had casually given him 2 as a gift, so he figured it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect that much and asked about 100, give or take. Huh? Are you some kind of monster? That number was so far beyond expectations that it slipped out before he could stop himself. But still, if she really could produce potions of that quality at a rate of 100 per day, it would justify keeping her safely in the rear. With that much potion, an army and its supplies could be sent to the front with ease. The witch could stay in the back while Nikolaus handled the front lines. That place is changing rapidly. There's a good chance of a disaster. If you notice anything off, just tell a knight or something. He'd meant to tell her to report any warning signs immediately, but stopped himself, realizing he was being too considerate. This woman had ignored her own kind for 500 years. He shouldn't let his guard down so easily. When he turned to leave, the witch followed him all the way to the teleportation circle, though there was no need. You didn't have to follow me all the way out here, seriously. The silent witch simply smiled at him, looking genuinely happy, considering they were the last of their kind. It was only natural that she'd feel some affinity toward him. And truthfully, she had smiled more when she realized it was him visiting, not the knight. Geez, she probably thinks I've warmed up to her. I should really say something before she gets the wrong idea. But then a thought struck him. He had already accepted her as one of his own. He didn't particularly like her or feel any emotional attachment, but a demon is a demon regardless. See you, Flower Witch. He whispered those words as he activated the teleportation spell. He didn't check to see how she reacted, but he was sure she was pleased. And if you're lying to me, if you're tricking me, I'll never forgive you. Chapter 37. Witch San. The sales of fairy candy jam are doing real well, and see, some caravans have taken an interest in Bit Village since we've got the chance. I was thinking of gathering those folks here and opening a joint market. It happened one peaceful day after Nikolaus had left. Ellie came by, reporting that all the fairy candy had sold out. He had come both to discuss dividing the profits and to request we continue with its production and sale, and that's when he brought this up. Fairy candy itself grows easily from the petals of purity blossoms, so there's no problem harvesting it. Even after supplying the wheat fields, the villagers' staple food, there was still a surplus, and people were even talking about expanding the fields, so I agreed to keep making the jam. One market? Yeah, just a little market. Not only me, but all kinds of merchants will be bringing all sorts of goods. Folks will be able to enjoy shopping more than ever before. And now that the sales of fairy candy have warmed everyone's pockets, once you've got money saved up, you're going to want something to spend it on, right? It seemed Noel had never seen a market before. Out here in this frontier, the only merchant who ever visited was Eli, so he probably couldn't picture what it looked like when several shops lined up side by side. Shopping, huh? I should probably learn what kind of things exist in this world. It'd help me study humans too, so I'm actually looking forward to it. Bit Village really was out in the sticks. There's nothing like internet delivery in modern Japan, and logistics are limited. I'd never seen anything like the art supplies Nikolaus had brought before, and surely the cities must be far more developed with many convenient tools. Maybe I could catch a glimpse of some of that civilization. Thanks to the 500 years of mountain seclusion setting, nobody finds it odd that I don't know things, but if I want to keep pretending to be human, I need to learn more about them. By the way, Witch-san, you wouldn't happen to have any other things that might make good products? Ah, in that case, the Lily of the Valley music box is finally complete. Let's show him. I beckoned Eli inside the house. He usually never came past the entryway, always finishing conversations outside the door, so he hadn't heard the music that now played within these fully soundproofed walls. The melody, originally intended to be Jingle Bells but somehow ending up as a different tune, echoed through the room. Noel loved this piece, calling it a sacred song, and always had it playing as background music. Well, when Witch Sama taught this flower a melody, it learned to keep playing it like this. Ellie was completely transfixed by the potted lily of the valley. Slowly, with a very serious expression, he turned back toward me. Witch-son? No, you ain't no witch. Hi, wait, don't tell me he's figured it out. You must be a goddess. I nearly had a heart attack. I only thought I was creating something humans would like, but for a moment I thought I'd given myself away by doing something no human could. Turns out that wasn't the case. Come to think of it, when I saved Ellie, they also called me goddess. Maybe it's something from this world's religion or folklore, I don't know the details, but perhaps it's a common idea. Well, Witch Sama really is beautiful, like a goddess. Since you've only ever brought blessings to my business, Witch-san, I say you really are a goddess. So does this mean you'll be selling these lilies of the valley as well? Ah, but it seems even for Witch Sama, making them isn't easy. You can't produce too many, right? That don't matter. If they're rare, that just means they'll sell for a higher price. Before I could explain, Noel, who had seen the whole development process, had already done so in my place. Indeed, teaching rhythm to a lily of the valley takes considerable effort, and making new songs is difficult. It'd be faster to have a new lily mimic one that already knows the performance, but standing out too much isn't good either, so best to keep it at they're hard to make. Eli, probably doing the math in his head, promised to sell these musical lilies and left in high spirits. He must have judged them extremely valuable. Since I still don't really understand money, I'll definitely have to look into it once the market opens. About half a month later, Eli returned, bringing other merchants with him. Since it's dangerous outside the village, several caravans gathered at the central square, setting up simple shops using wagons and cloths. Remembering flea markets I'd seen in my previous life, Noel and I also joined in to enjoy shopping. Witch Sama, this allowance is too much. So many coins. These are all from the plants. Witch Sama created, you know? But you made the jam, Noel. Buy whatever you like. We split the reward Eli gave us after setting aside living expenses, half and half between Noel and me. I had no idea what value copper and silver coins held. We'd have to actually shop to find out. Together with Noel, tail wagging happily, I went around the bustling market stalls one by one, from food to clothes, fabrics, ornaments, and decorations. The variety was astonishing. Oh, that goddess statue kind of looks like Witch Sama. What caught Noel's eye was a carved wooden statue of a goddess, wearing a crown of plants, adorned with flowers on her clothes. The beautiful goddess did indeed resemble me. Whether out of craftsmanship or devotion, the artisan had carved it with meticulous detail, capturing the texture of cloth and the soft curves of the female form. For something only hand-sized, it was impressive artistry. Even though it looked soft, it was hard wood, which perhaps made it resemble me all the more. We don't have a goddess statue at home, so can I buy it? Ah, maybe it's something necessary for worship? Sure, buy what you like. It was probably akin to a cross, a household altar, or a kamidana. Since I knew nothing of this world's religion, I couldn't tell what was necessary, so Noel could decide freely. With a happy smile, Noelle purchased the wooden statue for a large silver coin. I still didn't know how valuable that was. Witch-sama, you're not actually a goddess, right? Absolutely not. I shook my head at Noelle, who was comparing me to the carved goddess. I was just a mandrake. To mistake a mandrake for a goddess was a fall from the moon to the mud. Goddess? No way. At best, I'd be something like a root deity, which sounded far too much like being the overlord of root-type monsters. Unpleasant indeed, right? Of course not, I'm glad to hear that. Huh? Noelle then explained. This goddess was said to be one form the gods took when descending to save humanity. A most beautiful woman, emerging from the forest, clad in nature itself, never speaking human words. After saving people from a great disaster, she would return to the divine world and vanish. I was relieved knowing Witch-sama wouldn't disappear, because I want to serve you forever. Noelle really is still a dreamy child. An adult wouldn't mistake stories for reality or worry over them like this. Chapter 38. Among the stalls in the market, it seemed that accessories, clothes, and fabric shops were especially popular with women. Now that people had a bit of financial leeway, perhaps they wanted to start caring more about their appearance. There are lots of ready-made clothes, but mostly children's wear. Maybe they're a little expensive. Since many villagers couldn't read, the price tags weren't written in letters but shown with little coin-colored pictures. 3 copper-colored circles meant 3 copper coins, 1 big gray circle meant 1 large silver coin, and so on. Even for someone like me who couldn't read, it was easy to understand. Fabrics could be bought for just a few copper coins, but finished clothing jumped straight into silver. If you could sew, making it yourself would be cheaper. Even young Ellie was seriously picking through cloth at a fabric stall. Oh, Witch-sama Noelle? Hello. Hello. Are you making clothes? Yeah, I want to wear a cute dress and dance with this child. Witch-sama, can I make clothes for her? From Ellie's shadow popped out a mandrake wrapped in yellow cloth. The yellow sprout had been visiting Ellie's home frequently, and it seemed to have decided to befriend the girl. Maybe as part of that plan, Ellie wanted to put something on the little one other than just the full-body yellow cloth. But it's dangerous if you touch it, so taking those clothes off isn't allowed. I lifted the yellow sprout, tugged lightly at its current cloth, and shook my head. Ellie tilted hers in puzzlement, but Noelle, watching carefully, thought for a moment before speaking. Mandrakes have a trait where they absorb a bit of magic, right? So if you took those clothes off and put on different ones, it could be dangerous. That's what you mean. Exactly, Noelle. I'd give you the title of Esper if I could. I patted his head in approval, and his tail wagged happily. Now that I thought about it, his own clothes were the plain ones I had made. This seemed like a good chance to buy him some proper human clothing. Then what if I just put the new clothes on top of these? That's fine, it wouldn't be dangerous, and it'd probably make it even cuter, more mascot-like. The sprouts existed largely to improve the mandrake's image. They did work as surveillance, but the main goal was to show the villagers that there were harmless, friendly monsters too. They had blended into the village well, and Ellie wanting to dress one up was a good sign, like putting clothes on a pet. Then let's pick a fabric that'll suit Hikari-chan's outfit. Which one should we choose? The yellow sprout tilted its head to the side at Ellie's words, standing before the cloths as if joining in on the color matching. So Hikari was the name she'd given it. You named it Hikari? Yeah, because it's bright yellow. Was that bad? It's fine, I think. Looks like the yellow sprout doesn't mind either. More like a nickname. Even the purple sprout had people calling it Murasaki-chan. Everyone seemed to give them nicknames, so I didn't see a problem. Now that I thought about it, I didn't even have a name. People just called me Witch. And since that served as my name, I never felt troubled by it. I guess I'm just not attached to names, maybe because I'm not human. I tried thinking of one for myself, but this world's human names weren't Japanese, so nothing fitting came to mind. Pets seem to get Japanese-like names, just like Hikari. If I gave myself a name based on my traits, I'd probably end up with something silly like Flower-san. My naming sense was hopeless. Besides, there wasn't really anyone for me to introduce myself to, and demons didn't usually name themselves anyway, so there was no real need. Let's become popular in the village together, Hikari-chan. Once I make your clothes, we'll sing and dance. It's like she wants to make it an idol. Very childlike and cute, but no singing for the sprout, that's forbidden. Otherwise, it'd be less a concert and more a mass death event. Instead of excitement, the audience would collapse forever. Once again, I firmly ordered the sprout never to utter a sound, and then we went to look at the next stall, a clothing shop. They sold all kinds of clothes, from different ages, styles to accessories and ornaments. The variety was fun to look at. While browsing the boys' section of children's wear, Noelle suddenly noticed and spoke in alarm. Witch-sama, you're not thinking of buying me one of these expensive clothes, are you? But the ones I made for you are so plain, you should have proper human clothes. Besides, Noelle, you've grown a little, haven't you? The clothes I'd sewn for him would soon be too small. I held my hand level to his head height to show it, and he drooped. I was so happy with the clothes Witch-sama made me, I wanted to keep wearing them. That made it harder to recommend new ones. I hadn't thought he liked those plain hemp-looking clothes that much. But clothes were consumable, especially for growing children. They quickly became too small. After some thought, I clapped my hands with an idea. I'll make you a hat instead. That'll last longer than clothes. Immediately, I used my diversification skill to produce wheat, the villagers' main crop, and wove it. Since it was a plant I'd made, drying it was easy. Soon, I fashioned a straw hat. I cut holes for his ears, then decorated it with bright flowers so it wouldn't be too plain. Normally flowers would wilt, but as long as I was around, I could keep them fresh. I could even change the types. A privilege for Noel, my attendant. I set the hat on his head and he touched it softly, looking up at me with sparkling eyes. It feels like I'm matching with Witch-sama. Hey, thank you, then I'll pick clothes that go well with this hat. Yes, that's perfect. With a smile, Noel began choosing clothes for himself. While I watched, the shopkeeper, a female merchant, suddenly approached me with startling speed. For a second I thought I'd done something wrong, but she didn't seem angry. Village Witch-sama, you are beautiful. Just looking at you, inspiration is overflowing. She pushed her face close, and I couldn't help but scream. I froze in shock, unable to recoil, but the glint in her eyes was terrifying, like a predator eyeing its prey. Such a gentle, embracing smile, a perfectly sculpted figure like a work of art, and your body adorned with flowers in full bloom, using living flowers in fashion. How marvelous! A style only the flower witch could pull off. Please let me study you. If you do, I'll waive the cost of the clothes. Eek! Who is this person?
She's terrifying. Oh, what a beautiful smile. Thank you for your kind consent.
I hadn't consented at all, but since my fearful scream had twisted into what looked like a smile, she took it as agreement. She began circling me at different angles, observing me with a gaze that practically licked over my entire body. It was so frightening that I couldn't stop screaming. I want to capture the vitality of these flowers and fabric and make flower-decorated clothing the new trend. I must spread it. It seemed she wasn't just a clothing merchant, but a designer who made and sold her own fashion, likely with an overwhelming amount of personal passion driving her. She doesn't mean harm, but still, she's scary.
Something to hide behind? Anything?
I spotted a veil among the shop's goods, a sheer lace one that let you see through it. Desperate to cover myself even a little, I put it on. Suddenly, clap. A loud sound went off, and I shrieked again. It was just her slapping her hands in delight. The mysterious smile behind a veil, it even carries an air of seduction. Gorgeous, irresistible, I must dress you not just with small accessories, but with my clothes too. But I cannot yet create flowers as fresh and vibrant as yours. And the boy serving Witch-sama too. I must adorn him and refine his look to shine beautifully at your side. And so it was that I first met Query, the eccentric genius designer who would later spark a great fashion trend. Chapter 39. After thoroughly observing me as though devouring me with her eyes, the designer woman, Query, declared herself fully satisfied and then picked out clothes that would suit Noelle. She was so delighted she offered multiple children's outfits, starting from the price of a large silver coin along with the veil for me, all free of charge. The only time I was spared her attention was while she was busy fussing over Noelle's choices. I had the rare chance to study such a perfectly sculpted, almost artificial body in detail. Truly, no payment is necessary. It's so rare to meet a woman who accepts it all with such a gentle smile. Such gratitude. This was a blessing for my eyes. I'll be bursting with design ideas for a while. I wasn't accepting anything. I was screaming in terror the whole time. She had mistaken my panicked shrieks for smiles of tolerance. Noelle nodded along in agreement, saying, Witch-sama is so kind. But the truth was I was just a timid mandrake scared out of my mind. We quickly hurried away from Query's shop and tried peeking into another stall. That was when I noticed a few figures in the crowd and turned toward them. Unlucky that a simple survey turned into a monster subjugation. I was hoping to enjoy the market today. It's only midday, the market isn't over. But not in that condition. You'll disturb the villagers. Go back first and change, you sure? All right, I'll hurry back and get changed then. Leonhardt, don't push yourself either, all right? Leonhardt, Ritter, and 2 other knights. Apparently, they had just fought off monsters outside the village. On their way back to their quarters, they had happened to pass by this end of the square where our stall stood. That's how we met them. Ugh, scary. I really have to make sure I never become a target for subjugation. Noticing my gaze, Leonhardt looked up and inclined his head respectfully. But the motion was a bit sluggish, lacking his usual sharpness. Could he be injured? If he's hurt, I can't just ignore it. I'm a good monster, after all. Definitely not dangerous, so of course I should help. I stepped closer, but Leonhardt, looking startled, instinctively backed away. He was clearly avoiding me. That stung. He'd always been so kind and cooperative toward me until now. Wait, why is he retreating like that? Did he see through me? Did he realize what I am? Leonhardt-san, you smell awful. Did something get on you? For a moment, I thought he'd seen through my schemes, but it was just Noel's voice from behind. My nose wasn't that sensitive, but apparently the stench was strong enough that Noel couldn't even approach. Ah, so that's it. True, there was a pungent odor, but in the demon realm I'd been used to such smells, so I hadn't noticed much. My apologies. During the battle, I was drenched in a monster's poisonous bodily fluids. The stench must be dreadful. Poison. It's not a serious injury. I had an antidote on hand, so there's no need to worry. I rinsed off lightly in the Purity Blossom Spring, but some poison soaked into the armor and is still clinging, so it's best if you don't get too close. That's terrible. He needs proper detoxification. Leonhardt had been a kind ally to me, often covering for me and bending the rules in my favor. I couldn't afford to lose him. I ran up and grabbed his hand. Although he said he'd washed, Noel had picked up on the lingering poison, no doubt absorbed into the armor or skin.
Witch Dono? What are you doing? It's dangerous.
I squeezed his hand tight. Unlike humans, I had strong resistance to toxins. Humans, however, could die so easily, even with antidote use. If he was already moving sluggishly, then he wasn't at full strength. It's fine. If I use Purity Blossoms, I can remove the poison easily. Purity Blossoms eagerly absorbed and broke down filth and toxins. They could parasitize something like a corpse and suck it dry, but against a living person, they couldn't take root. From the gauntlet where I held him, I sprouted blossoms to soak up the poison on his armor and skin. If there were wounds, they'd draw out the toxins from within as well. Once done, I withered them away so they wouldn't be in the way. Of course, this way of using them is probably something only I could manage. Normally, Purity Blossoms grew slowly on toxins. For me, I could force them to absorb quickly and speed up growth. Only someone with my skills or powerful magic could do such a thing. From the gaps in Leonhardt's armor, blossoms peeked out, giving him a strangely fanciful look for a moment. Once they finished absorbing all toxins, they withered at my will. That should have removed all the poison. Just in case, I glanced at the other knights, but they shook their heads hurriedly. No, we're fine, only Captain Leonhardt was exposed. He always leads the charge since his body nullifies curses. Geez, he's just a normal human, but he still takes the lead against monsters. That's incredible. I'm scared even when I know I'll win. Even if I were sure to win, I'd still be shrieking in terror while fighting. Compared to me, humans so much weaker still stood bravely at the front. Leonhardt must have remarkable mental strength. I wished I could borrow some of it for myself. I wanted to become a mandrake with a strong heart too. Thinking this, I looked up at him, only for him to quickly avert his gaze. So he's not actually rejecting me. The veil made it hard to read expressions clearly. Maybe it was better to take it off when no frightening humans were around. Well, except when Nikolaus was around, then I definitely want it as a shield. Even if it didn't actually protect anything, it worked as a kind of mental barrier, a wall for my heart. Witch Dono, thank you. Truly, I no longer feel any discomfort in my body. You needn't worry so much. Oh, right. I forgot. I'm still holding his hand. Oops, sorry. I realized I'd kept hold of his hand this whole time. Leonhardt had indirectly reminded me, probably because he didn't want to say it outright. I let go, inwardly apologizing. From his reaction, relieved, I thought, it seemed I might have been coming across like some weirdo who wouldn't let go. Awkward. I'll be sure to repay this favor later. So maybe he didn't think of me as weird after all, but he really doesn't need to make such a big deal of it. I shook my head slowly. I just wanted to keep my good witch image, and I couldn't afford to lose an ally. I wasn't after any reward. Now safe from poison, the knights said they would head back to change out of their filthy mud-stained gear before returning to the market later. I'll never understand Captain Ritter, but Captain Leonhardt's feelings I do. Witch Dono really does feel like a witch. You don't need to say unnecessary things. Let's go change and take a break. The knights walked off, chatting cheerfully. As they left, Ritter came back, already changed with the purple sprout perched on his shoulder. He must have picked it up at the lodge and brought it along. I'll find the perfect outfit for you. Murasaki-chan. The purple sprout leaned affectionately against his head, making him squeal with joy. Remembering what one of the knights had said earlier, I silently agreed with him. I, too, couldn't understand Ritter at all. Honestly, I was worried for his sanity and his future. Chapter 39.5 Leonhardt, Part 1. On their way into the demon realm for reconnaissance, Leonhardt and his men encountered a monster that had likely lost its territory in a fight and been driven out. It was a type of cursed frog monster, the Yomi frog. These frogs secreted poisonous slime, spitting it out or lashing it about with their tongues in battle. A nasty opponent indeed. Monsters that cursed their killer, like the Yomi frog, were usually dealt with by Leonhardt, whose body nullified curses, but this one ruptured its own poison sac at the moment of death, showering him in toxic slime. Fortunately, he shielded his face in time, so none got into his eyes or mouth. Poison absorbed through mucous membranes is particularly fast-acting, but it still seeped through the armor and cloth, and where it touched skin, pain soon followed. Leonhardt, the antidote. Ritter tossed him a vial of the supplied antidote. Leonhardt popped the cap and downed it immediately. That should counter what had seeped in through his skin. Let's head to the river. There's purity blossoms there, so the water won't be contaminated. That poison's strong, you need to wash it off quick. Can you walk? I'm fine. But first, the corpse. Leave the corpse to us. Captain, you get to the river and scrub that poison out. Escorted by Ritter, Leonhardt left the disposal of the body to his subordinates. Encountering another monster wasn't out of the question, so Ritter accompanied him. Normally, washing off poison into a river was dangerous. It could contaminate people's water supply. But here, the river was purified by the flower witch's purity blossoms. Her presence was a tremendous blessing for the order. Leonhardt waded into the river to wash. Meanwhile, Ritter kept watch and muttered under his breath, "Die together with me? Huh. What a rotten evolutionary path, monsters showing individuality in how they evolve. That's a bad sign, indeed. Originally, that species killed with curses after death. But if they've taken to self-destructing with poison instead, it must mean too many creatures around here already resist curses." The demon realm was likely embroiled in a struggle between poison-based monsters and curse-using monsters. In the end, the victors would be those with resistance to both. Such individuals would become the next apex threats, rulers of the realm. The type of monster that became ruler dictated how wide its domain stretched. If a wide territory type rose to dominance, then humans nearby would have no choice but to retreat. It would fall to the order to buy time against such a foe. All they could do was pray no wide territory monster would rise as the realm's new master. No one wants to be driven from their home. Perhaps Witch Dono came to Bit Village for that very day. The Flower Witch had secluded herself from the world for 500 years. She believed she bore some responsibility for the creation of the demon realm, and so chose to live on its frontier, ready to face it. The petals that floated downstream were her doing. The purity blossoms constantly cleansing the realm's poison at its source. That gentle persistence was the only reason humans could still live in the village. Leonhardt tried to scoop one up, but the current carried it just beyond his grasp. Close yet somehow far, just like her. Even after washing, it won't come off. I'll need proper poison remover. Yes, but for now it's good enough. It won't kill me. The toxin had seeped into the fibers of his gear. Rinsing with water alone wouldn't suffice. Still, it was better than nothing. With the antidote, the risk was low. Ritter used his wind magic to blast the water from Leonhardt's gear so he could put it back on. Poisoned or not, it was still better than no armor. But the stench was unbearable. Corpse disposal complete. Captain Leonhardt, how's your condition? No issues. I've taken the antidote. Monsters with toxic bodies required careful disposal. Once his men rejoined them, Leonhardt noticed they too reeked faintly of poison, grimacing all the while. Most corpse-type and venomous monsters stank horribly. Knights grew used to it, but that didn't make it pleasant. "You don't look great, Leonhardt. Don't push yourself. We're past our scheduled return. Let's head back along the river. I'll take rear guard." Following Ritter's orders, they kept alert as they made their way back to the village. Thankfully, no more monsters appeared, and they reached it in one piece. Relief spread through them. Even so, the body, still weakened by poison, had expended energy just breaking it down, leaving Leonhardt sluggish, his movements heavy. "Captain, you don't look well. Should we use Witch Dono's full recovery potion?" "No, we mustn't squander it on something this minor. We can't rely too much on her kindness." The Flower Witch had provided the Order with those potions, drugs so potent they could pull a man back from the brink of death. They weren't the sort of thing to be used lightly. If the Order's entire medical practice leaned on her alone, it would be a dangerous dependence. As they neared the lodge, sounds of activity reached them from the square. The market must have begun, the joint fair Eli had arranged with other merchants. Unlucky that the survey turned into monster hunting. I wanted to enjoy the market today. It's still midday. The market's not over. But you'll need to change first. That stench will only upset the villagers. Go back and change before joining. Ritter, it seemed, had been looking forward to shopping, perhaps with something specific in mind. The men were unharmed, and Leonhardt would recover with rest. If he were a model knight, he'd prioritize his comrades' wishes over his own state. He gave Ritter a reassuring smile. "You sure? All right then. I'll hurry back and change, Leonhardt. You rest too, okay?" Ritter dashed off toward the lodge at that moment. Leonhardt felt a gaze upon him. Glancing over, he saw the Flower Witch at the edge of the square, watching him. She wore a veil he hadn't seen before. No doubt something she'd just purchased. Even with her face half hidden, she exuded that mysterious beauty unlike any human. Better not approach her like this. He wanted to greet her, but not while stinking like this. Even Noel, standing behind her, had his ears and tail bristling at the smell. If even he couldn't stand it, the odor must be terrible. Leonhardt himself was already too accustomed, so he kept his distance, offering only a bow. He planned to take a detour around the square to avoid disrupting the bustling market. But then, the witch began walking toward him. Even Noel, who always stayed glued to her side, was frozen in place by the stench, yet she came forward, unfazed. Is she insensitive to smell? At this range, the stench should have been enough to make anyone pinch their nose. Yet she seemed unconcerned, stepping closer. Instinctively, Leonhardt backed away. She halted. Maybe she finally smelled it, or maybe she stopped because she noticed him flinching away. With her, it was surely the latter. It's hard to read her expression through that veil. Did I wound her feelings? Noel pointed out the stench, giving Leonhardt a chance to explain. He emphasized it wasn't that he disliked her, only that he was covered in poison. He didn't want her to misunderstand, but then she rushed in, seizing his hand before he could retreat. The shock of it was like taking a monster's blow. Leonhardt's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 39.6 Leonhardt, Part 2. The veil of the Flower Witch from a distance dulled transparency and made her expression difficult to read. But when one drew close enough, her beautiful face could be seen through it. Now, as she looked up at Leonhardt with worry in her eyes while holding his hand, he felt his composure slip. Witch Dono? What are you doing? This is dangerous!" There was no way he could shake off such a frail woman, and Leonhardt found himself unable to move. He had told her plainly that he was being consumed by poison, and yet she touched him of her own will. He had never imagined such a person existed. Then, as though to reassure him, the witch smiled, and a flower bloomed upon his gauntlet, one he had lately grown familiar with, the white flower of purification which absorbed poison. From where her hand clasped his gauntlet, more of them sprouted, blooming gradually upward along his arm. Could it be she's trying to purify me? Purification flowers were not plants that easily grew or multiplied. In fact, Leonhardt knew of no one but this witch who could control them at will. Yet he had never seen them used this way, grown upon a person. Still, since it was an act of this gentle witch, there could be no doubt it was for his sake. Rather than sprouting directly from his body, the flowers seemed to root themselves in the armor he wore. Soon after, they withered and scattered. A faint, gentle fragrance drifted in the air, and with it, Leonhardt realized the source of the foul odor. The poison was gone. The purification should be complete already, so why won't Witch Donna release my hand? Now that the poison was gone, surely she could let go, and yet she clutched his hand tightly still. She must be very concerned for him, but Leonhardt was certain that the real reason his heartbeat had gone haywire since earlier was this. Witch Dono, thank you. Thanks to you, I feel no trace of discomfort anymore, so truly there's no need to worry so much. As though reassured by his words, she finally let go, smiling as she stepped back. Relief flooded him, but for some reason there was also an ache of loneliness he couldn't explain. Though Leonhardt's poison was gone, the stench remained on the clothes of his subordinates, clinging alongside dust and grime. After thanking the witch, he quickly took his leave and set off for the inn. Perhaps his flustered demeanor had been obvious, or perhaps because they saw Ritter running toward them with a purple Mandragora sprout perched on his shoulder. One of his men muttered along the way, "I'll never understand Captain Ritter, but I get how you feel, Captain Leonhardt. Witch Dono really does feel like a witch. You needn't say unnecessary things. Let's change and all take a proper rest." Hearing that his feelings were understood made Leonhardt's heart jolt. The emotions he felt toward the witch should have been nothing more than camaraderie born of shared cursed fates, or perhaps admiration for her kind and good-hearted nature. Nothing more, certainly nothing so easily guessed at. Normally people flock to us, but after a harsh mission, when we're filthy and reeking, nobody ever comes near. Exactly, which is fine, since we really are filthy. But when she ran to us looking so worried, I felt it right here, even though it wasn't for me. Even as knights admired by the people, they could not always appear clean and composed. Sometimes they were drenched in blood, or like today, drenched in poison and stench. At such times, even if people offered words of thanks, they never drew near. Knights thought that it had been so natural that the witch's entirely different behavior had shocked them, right? Honestly, I thought she'd come to us too, so I refused, Captain Leonhardt. You endured well. If it had been Captain Ritter, he'd already be proposing marriage. No, Ritter right now as well, you know, he's devoted. Ah, that's true. Ritter does keep saying he's devoted. Their chatter made Leonhardt recall Ritter's usual declarations. He did not fool around with women, avoided all dealings with prostitutes, and devoted everything to the one he had chosen. That his chosen partner resembled a woman but was in fact a mandragora was beyond comprehension. But still, Ritter seemed utterly determined to be faithful to the purple sprout. Come to think of it, I've never heard any gossip about you either, Captain Leonhardt. You're surrounded by women the most, though. Several gazes turned toward Leonhardt. Love and romance, he thought, were for people who could bear their true selves to each other. Leonhardt bore the cursed eyes that incited murderous intent and lived by constantly pretending to be something pure and untainted. How could someone like him ever truly be close to another who knew nothing of his real nature? I'm simply not inclined to make lifelong promises when I could die at any time. Lifetime itself is limited. Wow, that's chivalry itself, Captain Leonhardt. Me, I just wished someone would wait for me. And then I got dumped before coming here. Want a handkerchief? No thanks. That's the one you just used to wipe grime off, isn't it? Knights were admired and received much attention from the opposite sex, but their lives were long campaigns and perilous duties. Few could wait endlessly for them. Many encounters, but also many farewells. Most married before retirement, but Leonhardt had always thought himself apart from that. There was no one to whom he could show his true self. I think I'll head to the market after I change. Maybe I'll find something cute. Come to think of it, you've been close with someone lately, haven't you? Don't tell me you're about to get a lover while I'm still reeling from rejection. Ah, hey, Captain Leonhardt, how about you too? Witch Dono was wearing a veil today. She seems to like fashion. Maybe you could buy her something as thanks. Hey, don't change the subject. But hearing the suggestion, Leonhardt realized he had no other way to thank her. After 500 years in the mountains, she surely had few recent possessions. Looking through the market and giving her a gift might indeed be a good idea. Though he was hopeless when it came to gifts for women, having no experience whatsoever. If you would help me choose something to thank Witch Dono with, I'd appreciate it. I'm not used to this. Of course, Captain. Me too. We're all rooting for you. For some reason, his men were grinning at him as though watching something heartwarming. That was not his intention at all. And not knowing how else to respond, Leonhardt gave only a faint, awkward smile. Chapter 39.7 Leonhardt, Part 3. After returning to the inn once to tidy himself up, Leonhardt headed back to the market with one of his men who also wanted to shop. The bustle had not yet faded. Looking around, he spotted the witch, speaking with Elia, the merchant hosting the fair. Naturally, she did not notice Leonhardt's return. The clothing and accessory shop is here, Captain. Witch Dono seemed to be looking earlier, too. Shall we try here first? Let's do that. The shop seemed to stock apparel for all ages and genders, but ready-made clothes were expensive, so customers were few. The fabric stall next door was far busier. Here, aside from Leonhardt and his subordinate, the only other customers were Ritter and the small purple Mandragora Sprout on his shoulder. I wanted to give Purple Chan some clothes, but human sizes are too big, even children's. Isn't there some way? Oh my, what a splendid proportion, truly wonderful. It's like a miniature version of Witch Sama herself. Such beautiful balance. I've been wanting to design something for Witch Sama, so consider this practice. If you'll let me decide the design, I'll do it at a bargain. Really? That's great. You hear that, Purple Chan? Ritter was reliable in battle, but in front of women his behavior tended toward the dubious. Yet with this shop's female owner and designer, he spoke normally. Perhaps because his heart no longer wavered, he had already chosen. Leonhardt's mind refused to process that fact, so he stopped thinking about it. Tearing his gaze away from the sprout posing atop the counter, his eyes fell upon some ornaments further inside, and he walked toward them. Captain Leonhardt, you can stand this atmosphere well. I almost suggested another shop. There seems to be no other clothing store here, and more importantly, even I, who know little of such things, can tell these are good. If Witch Dono bought her veil here, it should match her tastes. The owner was eccentric, perhaps very eccentric, but the clothes were bright and pleasing to the eye. Leonhardt could easily imagine how well they would suit her. He stopped at a display of ornaments and picked up a hairpin that drew his eye. Shaped like dangling droplets of glass, linked by delicate chains, it caught the light as it swayed, sparkling with a clear, chiming sound. Oh, that's beautiful, Captain. You don't look very hesitant for someone who asked our advice. Not so. It's just, I could clearly picture her wearing it. I thought it would suit her. The flower witch always adorned herself in blooms glorious in their beauty. Those must be sustained by her magic, real flowers, fresh and alive. For someone so adorned, Leonhardt thought an ornament shaped like water, the very essence of life to plants, would be fitting. I see. Then it's something you truly want to give her. I think it's perfect. I hope Witch Dono uses it. Well, I'll pick something for my own girl, too. Captain, you go ahead with the purchase, smiling as he began earnestly comparing handkerchiefs of similar design. His subordinate seemed intent on choosing what best suited the one he had in mind. Leonhardt glanced toward the owner, who appeared just finished speaking with Ritter. The clothes would not be ready immediately. Designs took time. For now, Ritter was done. Next, the plant shop. I'll get you a fine tonic, Purple Chan. The purple sprout clung happily to Ritter's arm as he carried it out. The knight's foolish grin stretched ear to ear. Neither knights nor villagers would ever steer him back to the proper path. More and more people simply accepted Ritter and the Mandragora as they were. Habit was a frightening thing. Oh, customer, will you be taking that? Yes, please. That will be one large silver coin. Leonhardt paid, had the hairpin wrapped in a handkerchief, and tucked it into his breast. His subordinate too bought what he had chosen, and together they left the store. The flower witch was still speaking with the merchant. Her voice, however, could not be heard by anyone but Leonhardt. It was her attendant, Noelle, who read her intent and spoke in her place. She seems busy today. I'll visit again tomorrow. He had no wish to intrude. He only wanted to express his thanks. He would not trouble her. The next day, the merchants closed their stalls and sought goods in the village itself. Though small, thanks to the witch, there were many rare things. Eli oversaw it all, but he could not handle everything alone, so merchants wanted to strike deals with villagers or the witch if they found items of use. It almost feels like tourism could Bit Village become a tourist spot one day. This had been a dangerous frontier, avoided by all, but with the flower witch's arrival, the land had changed. Though danger still remained. Leonhardt left the village and walked toward the witch's house. Around the river bloomed purification flowers, perhaps from her power, and greenery flourished. Autumn would soon bring a great harvest, for now summer's blossoms and greenery still shone bright. In the witch's garden, too, flowers bloomed. He saw her there with Noelle and the village girl Ellie looking after two children. She was kind and well loved by them, often playing with them like this. Now's the time. Leonhardt drew out the wrapped hairpin and looked toward her again. The children who had been sitting in the garden ran up to the witch.
Witch Sama here. Please take this.
Ellie offered a crown woven of flowers. The witch, today without her veil, smiled and accepted, setting it upon her head. Already wearing a hat-like array of blossoms, she wore the crown without the slightest discord. The veil is lovely too, but really flowers suit you best, Witch Sama. Even from afar, Ellie's high voice carried clearly. At Noelle's words, Leonhardt's hand tightened unconsciously. Indeed, it was true. For the flower witch, nothing suited better than real flowers. She was like the incarnation of plants themselves. Any ornament would only be in the way. Realizing he had gripped the hairpin too tightly, he took it from the cloth. The shaft had snapped. It was ruined, unfit for a gift. Something like this would only trouble her. I'll give it up. As the hairpin glittered in the sun, a bird dove and snatched it from his hand. All that remained was the broken shaft, the ornament part gone. He did not even feel like chasing it. With his errand void, Leonhardt turned back to the inn. Welcome back, Captain. Did you manage to give it to her? No. Circumstances prevented it. Ah, well, these things happen. There'll be other chances. His subordinate looked at him with gentle sympathy, but there would be no chance. The hairpin had been carried to some nest, no doubt used as nesting material. He kept the broken shaft, unable to discard it. It was only trash, but he clung to it. Why? No, it's not that my wish to thank her is gone. That must be it. I'll give her something else. Something she'll truly like, something plant-related, perhaps. This time, something that would bring her joy. Resolving so, Leonhardt went to her house days later, intending to ask her or Noel what she might want. Then he saw it. Upon the witch's head was the very hairpin, the one the bird had stolen. Witch don't know that hairpin. She smiled gently, silent as always before others. The droplet-shaped glass glimmered as her head tilted, as though a shining stream flowed. It suited her exquisitely. Did she see? Did she know? Perhaps she had noticed him that day even at a distance and reclaimed the hairpin when he gave up. Perhaps she accepted it knowingly. It suits you very well. The words forced from his lips trembled faintly. His heartbeat raced, his body hot, his skin prickling. The smiling flower witch shone too brightly, and the eye not hidden beneath his patch felt close to burning. Purple Chan is dazzling, you know, Leonhardt. When you like a girl, she looks dazzling. Fall in love and you'll see, it's the same for everyone. He recalled a comrade's words, but he wished they wouldn't compare him the same way.